In the world of Duo, an immersive VR game, players clashed constantly over territory, blades and magic colliding across battlefields shaped like fractured continents. Among them, whispers spread of a swordsman known as the Demon King, a figure feared across every server. Since in this world combat between players formed the very core of survival, a violent gust tore through the terrain as their pursuer closed the distance in an instant. Startled, one of them wondered if fleeing was even an option anymore, while another realized their enemy had arrived completely alone. Chaos broke out as one fighter recoiled from a sudden strike, shouting for the attack to stop, while their companion pressed forward through the dust and debris. A warning rang out to hold formation and not lose composure in the fight, but momentum carried the battle forward. Blades clashing again and again. Steel met steel with a sharp clang, surprise flashing across a fighter's face as the enemy's blade shifted unexpectedly mid-swing. Confusion turned to dread. A pointed-eared warrior froze, disbelief spreading across his face as he began to understand what had just happened, murmuring an apology under his breath as the outcome became clear. The ground cracked beneath the impact of a massive weapon. One of the surviving fighters cried out that he had already warned them about who they were dealing with. His voice breaking with dread, panic spread through the group as they realized their comrades were in serious danger if the fight continued this way. A jagged blade slicing past them as they scrambled for footing. Word spread quickly across the battlefield. This enemy was the strongest player in the PvP scene. Recognition dawned in horror on a young fighter's face as she understood exactly who stood before her. Months earlier, in an ordinary bedroom, a boy named Kumitsuki stretched awake with a satisfied yawn, convinced that nothing beat the feeling of waking up after a long night of gaming. Sitting on his bed, he admitted he hadn't played much lately, brushing off the AI companion in his room that reminded him he'd already been playing VR games for far too long. He teased the AI for being overly talkative for something that wasn't even human, though it pointed out he had nothing else going on anyway. He reasoned that with his high school placement already secured, he intended to spend the remaining free days gaming without restraint. Rushing out the door, he brushed off his sister's scolding about vanishing, without a word, explaining he'd gotten too absorbed, testing a new game. At the door, someone noted dryly that of course it was another game pulling him away. Hurrying along, red-haired and cheerful despite already running late, he wondered what exactly this new job of a game would turn out to be about. Walking through the towering city skyline, he explained that this particular project was one his own father had built. Caught up in the excitement of playing, he lost track of time entirely and ended up arriving late anyway. Facing his father, Duo's main programmer and hardware designer, he apologized for rushing but still being tardy. Back at the office, Sora handed his son a set of spare clothes in case he ended up sleeping there again, and reminded him not to forget his lunch. Sora admitted sleeping felt boring to him lately, staying up night after night working on his project, proud of what he had built. The day had come, Destiny Unchained Online, a full immersion VR MMORPG years in the making, was officially launching. Ku stared at the announcement with a strange, unfamiliar feeling, knowing the long-awaited game called Duo had been made by someone from his own family. He admitted he was genuinely excited to try it, though Sora warned him it was a game built for highly skilled players, one where dying came easily. Undeterred, Koji to download it right away. Sora revealed something more. He intended to let Koji join Duo through an entirely new device he'd developed himself. He led Ko to a tall capsule called Cradle, a human interface inspired by regenerative gel technology. He boasted about the design, insisting it wasn't just some ordinary gaming machine. Ko stared at it in disbelief, hearing that it could reproduce all 5 senses just like reality. Confused, Ko wondered aloud if something like this counted as hardware cheating, amazed he'd even get to play games through it. Sora reassured him it wasn't that kind of advantage at all. Koku asked what exactly he'd be able to do inside the game. Sora brushed it off casually, saying it was simple, though privately Ko suspected the 5 sense claim might be exaggerated. Sora explained the playstyle would be entirely up to him, encouraging Koyu to consider aiming to become the strongest player, since Duo was fundamentally an interpersonal game built around player interaction. Ku protested at the sudden weight of the suggestion, joking that Sora shouldn't bring up someone's dark past like that, comparing the goal to some kind of declaration to become an evil PvP player. Settling into the capsule, Ku asked if he could really log in using this thing, noting the impact only seemed to grow the deeper he sank in. Sora simply confirmed that yes, of course he could, before starting. Kaudu thanked his father for always letting him help out with his work, admitting he genuinely enjoyed being involved and looked forward to his games. Sora paused, caught off guard by the sudden warmth. The mood shifted as Sora mentioned Koku's mother, quickly asking not to bring her up, saying if that was how things stood, it was fine as is. Ko admitted he didn't know how he should react to any of it, uncertain what to make of the unspoken history behind the game. Sora revealed something more, the game itself, and by extension the world within it, had been made for her, for Kosa's mother. He apologized for leaving Ko alone for so long, admitting the project had consumed most of his attention, waving it off afterward as just exaggeration and complaining. Still, Sora told Ko he was free to do whatever felt right to him, encouraging him to have fun with it and to come find him if he ever felt lost. Ko agreed, still not fully understanding, and the two prepared to begin. As the capsule closed around him, Ko looked ahead with quiet resolve, ready to enter a game where every sense would feel real, determined now to aim for the very top. Sealed inside Cradle, Kosu's mind raced with a rush of anticipation, knowing both his parents had poured themselves into building this world. Curiosity won out over hesitation as the system counted him down, ready to launch him in. The world opened before him with overwhelming scale, a towering goddess, like figure rising from the horizon, radiant and layered with intricate detail. Awestruck, Ku muttered about how enormous she looked, wondering if she was meant to be some kind of deity. The figure greeted him formally, welcoming him to Destiny Unchained Online and asking him to input his name. Ko wondered silently if she might be an AI guide. The prompt repeated itself, patient and glowing, waiting for his response as he stood before her, still processing the scale of it all. She explained that whatever he chose would become the very representation of himself within the game. Without hesitation, Ko typed in the name he always used, Crim, drawn from the same character as the word crimson. Character creation began in earnest, an array of race options materializing before him, each design distinct from the last. She began listing the 6 available races, but before she could finish, her form glitched and stuttered mid-sentence. Startled, Ko wondered aloud if something was wrong, questioning whether the model itself was bugging out on release day of all days. A notification appeared instead, stating that a unique array data structure had been detected within his factor. Confused, Ko stared at the message, unsure what exactly his factor even meant. The guide's form shifted violently, informing him that this unique discovery now granted him access to one additional, exclusive race choice. Ko reacted with a mix of shock and excitement at the reveal. The race was named Noble Red, described as ancestors of vampires tied to nocturnal existence, marked by pale translucent skin and eyes, as red as blood. The figure that appeared before him, however, was completely nude, leaving Ku flustered and demanding to know why. She elaborated further, explaining vampires split into 2 distinct types, pureblood and thin-blooded, both descending from the original ancestor race known as Noble Red. She detailed the type's core strengths, noting they excelled in physical power and magic, capable of summoning weapons formed purely from supernatural ability. As a blood-based type, though, Ku hesitated, awkwardly admitting he was essentially a vegetarian at heart and wasn't fond of anything gory, clearly unsettled by the blood, drinking mechanic tied to the race. She asked what significance choosing this particular race actually held for him, adding that if he wished, he could always restrain himself and avoid using vampire-related abilities altogether. She continued outlining the drawbacks tied to each vampire subtype, joking quietly to himself about how much she kept talking, noting that both pureblood and thin blood came with a full trade off of stats. She revealed the harshest weakness first. Pureblood vampires suffered severely under direct sunlight, losing health every 20 seconds while exposed. Ku balked at how extreme that penalty sounded. Thin-blooded vampires fared only slightly better, taking a flat 20% reduction across every stat whenever exposed to weak sunlight. She revealed one more customization option. He could select an additional personal weakness of his own choosing, so long as it stayed rooted in traditional vampire lore. With the weakness settled, she moved on to distributing his initial skill points. Ko noted with interest that the more weaknesses he stacked on, the stronger his base stats would become in return. Reviewing the long list of primary skills available, he was intrigued to spot an ability listed as Shadow Weapon among the options. She encouraged him to take his time deciding. While Ku weighed his priorities, the goddess dozed off mid-sentence, letting out a soft snore, then jolted awake with a gasp, startling Ku into wondering again if she was truly meant to be an AI guide. She composed herself and finalized his choices, thin-blooded weak against silver. Ku stared at his finished build, admitting the whole process felt startlingly immersive, joking grimly that he'd probably end up throwing up blood at some point, given how deep he'd gone into optimizing his weaknesses. He grew restless, reasoning other players had surely already jumped into the game by now, and thinking about efficiency. He didn't want to waste any more time finishing up. He paused, puzzled by an odd sense of familiarity toward the vampire race, despite never having chosen it before. Questioning why it felt this way, even as the other race options had looked just as fun. He recalled his father's words from before entering, that if he ever found himself lost, he was free to do whatever felt right to him. The goddess mentioned offhand that the avatar displaying only as female was a known bug in the system. Ko paused, weighing what actually felt right to him, then asked outright whether gender could be changed, to which he confirmed no. It couldn't. Making up his mind, he decided it would honestly be pretty awesome to become a male vampire regardless, embracing the idea with newfound enthusiasm. Determined now, he declared he was ready to fully become this new form, eyes blazing with resolve as the transformation process began. Behind the scenes, system logs confirmed the subscriber Kumitsuki had agreed and been verified, biometric data analysis completed, and genetic corrections finalized. The noble red race was locked in, and the physical reconfiguration process began as his mind was securely transferred into Cradle. Inside the game, Kaux's senses activated one by one, catching the scent of soil and flowers drifting through the air, the distinct fragrance unique to the full dive system taking hold. His hand moved on its own, fingers flexing with unfamiliar grace, his heart pounding steadily as the new body settled into place. Sitting up, he took in his surroundings, an ancient collapsed ruin stretching out around him, sunlight pouring through broken archways onto scattered rubble. He spoke aloud, startled immediately by the sound of his own voice. Completely unlike what he expected. Panic set in as his HP and MP bars flickered into view above an unfamiliar reflection, his hands trembling as he stared at delicate clawed fingers that weren't his own. He'd assumed the female, only avatar was simply a display bug, but reality proved otherwise as he looked down at himself in mounting horror, realizing the transformation had fully taken hold, and he was now undeniably a girl. Clutching himself in disbelief, he demanded to know if gender swapping was really supposed to be impossible, his voice cracking with distress at the sight of his new form. Sweat poured down his face as the weight of the situation sank in. Realizing this kind of change was supposed to be strictly prohibited, yet here it was, about to have a very real and lasting impact. A voice crackled through as a GM, unmistakably his father, laughing at how cute his new voice sounded. Mortified, Ko shouted for him to wait, then demanded to know just what exactly his old man thought he was doing. Sora explained through the GM channel that certain pieces of equipment weren't functioning quite right, chalking it up to a bug that had swapped his gender entirely. Ko snapped back that this was clearly a problem on his father's end as a parent. Sora then casually instructed him to simply stay logged in every single day for the next 3 months, sleep included. Ko exploded in disbelief, refusing to accept it, while Sora casually revealed he'd already arranged for him to attend school entirely online for the next 2 months. His finger hovered over a configuration menu, hesitating at the logout option, only to realize with growing dread that logging out simply wasn't happening. Twitching with frustration, he cursed his father, who admitted he'd deliberately built the system this way to keep him from leaving. Sora noted he could read the disbelief written across Karu's face, insisting this wasn't some kind of prank, and that he genuinely meant what he'd said. Karu demanded to know exactly what he was thinking, unconvinced. Sora explained it would mean a great deal to him personally if Ko could find enjoyment in duo, adding seriously that this was an important task for him specifically to carry out. Reluctantly, Ko agreed to go along with it, and Sora promised to trust him with it, sending him off to follow the tutorial toward Wyndham, the game's starting city. Before parting, Ko pleaded to at least be restored to his original gender. Moving on, called up the game's opening cutscene to watch, still bothered by being called Little Krim, confused about who his father could have possibly meant by that. The story unfolded on screen. Long ago, an empire had risen to dominate the entire continent, ruling over its people unchallenged. Even so powerful an empire eventually saw its grip weaken over time. The population rose against the emperor's tyranny, rebellions breaking out one after another and sparking civil wars across the continent. 30 years later, the emperor of that era was finally overthrown, left broken and defeated upon a shattered throne. In the empire's absence, countless new nations were born, each vying for leadership and plunging the continent in an era of constant conflict. Different factions rose for different reasons, some seeking to spread their own fate onto others. Some chasing personal desire, some hoping to protect the new order, some driven to prove their strength, and others fighting simply for those left behind with nothing. War became an ordinary part of daily life, cycling endlessly between the birth and collapse of nations. And it was into this fractured world that the players eventually arrived. Ko murmured to himself, finally piecing the story together. He admitted he understood the gist of it, though looking back, he considered it a purely hindsight-based opinion that the era under the old emperor's rule had actually been the most peaceful the continent had seen. The map laid out the current system. Territories divided among guilds through a PvP, base skill structure, alongside unclaimed regions still up for grabs, framing the entire game as fundamentally about conquering kingdoms. Guild versus guild combat stood as one of Duo's central pillars, with each guild fighting to claim territory, and whichever side won control ruled over that land. Something about the idea of becoming a feudal lord genuinely appealed to him, and he found himself warming to the concept. He admitted he played a fair amount of PvP already, but was still relatively new to large-scale guild warfare. Shaking off the thought, he grinned and declared his plan. He'd gather friends of his own and build a country from scratch. Settling firmly on that goal, dropped into the world at last, he found himself standing in the middle of a dense forest, unsure where to start. A sudden scream echoed through the trees, catching his attention immediately. He noted just how vast the surrounding forest felt as he moved through it. Marveling at how real everything felt beneath his feet, he pushed forward carefully, wary of tripping or sliding down the uneven terrain. The system notified her that Sprint had leveled up. She stared at the message, confused by what it meant. Her body suddenly felt weightless. Before she could process it, she shot forward across the ground at incredible speed, leaving another player stunned behind her. Skills in this world grew through repeated action, not fixed levels. Every step she took sharpened her control, and Sprint climbed another level. She kept running through the forest when she spotted a boy cornered by a massive beast. A rescue event had triggered, and she was standing right in the middle of it. The boy clutched his knees, terrified as the beast roared and lunged toward him. She dove in and kicked the creature aside, shouting at him not to give up. The beast snarled, refusing to back down. Once the danger passed, the boy asked who she was. She smiled and asked if he was hurt, relieved that he was safe. Catching herself, she remembered she now looked like a girl. Laughing it off, she told him to hide while she handled the fight, and he nervously agreed to let his new big sis protect him. The beast moved faster than its size suggested. Smashing through the terrain, she wondered if this was really just a tutorial-level enemy. The boy yelled at her, warning that her approach wouldn't work. She reassured him not to underestimate her, confident a critical hit would finish it. She struck hard, but the blow barely phased the beast, and she froze in surprise. Her sword failed to cut through its hide at all. She realized this enemy was far tougher than it looked. There had been a reaction, but no real damage. The boy repeated that she couldn't win this way. She decided melee wasn't enough and switched to a magic weapon instead. Shadow magic gathered around her blade, forming a weapon fueled entirely by her own magical power. The beast roared again, lunging with full force. She apologized under her breath, certain this new weapon would finally cut through. The blade sliced clean through, landing a critical hit. In this game, only removing the head mattered. HP meant nothing. She let out a triumphant shout, thrilled by the feeling of victory. Aiming for vital points, she confirmed, was always the right call. Once the fight ended, she checked on the boy again. He assured her he was fine, amazed at how strong she really was. He apologized nervously for causing trouble. She just smiled, quietly asking herself if she was really okay after everything that had just happened. The boy introduced himself as George, thanking her again. She replied that her name was Krim, brushing off his gratitude. Catching himself using a male way of speaking, he froze, realizing something felt off. She caught herself too, laughing awkwardly and correcting her introduction. Being a girl now meant she had to speak like one, and it was going to take some getting used to. George offered her a place to stay, a spare room no one used. She hesitated, insisting she was the one who owed him, not the other way around. She asked if this was Wyndham, the starting city from the tutorial. He tilted his head, confused by the name, having never heard of it before. Looking out over the landscape, he explained this was the countryside near Naval Fog Lake, far from Wyndham. She insisted he had to be mistaken, certain the tutorial city should be close by. Something didn't add up. If Naval was this far from Wyndham, then the weak beast she'd fought earlier couldn't have been a normal tutorial boss at all. Realization hit her all at once. The race, the gender swap, she had accepted all of it. But even her starting location had been thrown off by the game's bugs. 2 hours had passed since Krim entered Destiny Unchained Online. The forest blurred around her as she moved, blade drawn, chasing the rhythm of a fight already in motion. She swung hard, barely keeping her footing. The controls were still unfamiliar, but the shape of the game was starting to make sense to her. She dodged past the beast's claws, calculating her next strike. To end it quickly, she needed to hit the brain, the heart, the spine, anything vital. She closed the distance in an instant, blade raised. Divine might, a technique built for closing gaps, carried her straight into the enemy's guard. The grizzly let out a final roar before collapsing. She hadn't tracked its remaining health. She simply assumed one clean hit would be enough to end it once its weak point was destroyed. The fight became simple. The forest fell quiet again as the creature dropped. She allowed herself a small smile, wondering aloud if this one hit-kill approach would carry the same weight in player versus player battles. A boy stepped out from the bushes, holding a bundle of herbs. He thanked her for keeping him safe while he gathered ingredients for medicine. Krim rubbed her temples, realizing she'd started in the wrong location entirely. She decided to head for the nearest city, Naval, to get her bearings. Back near the riverbank, the boy asked if she'd found what they were looking for. She hadn't. She'd only heard that the ingredient could be found somewhere in that area. What began as a simple side quest to rescue the boy, George, had quietly turned into a full gathering quest. She admitted she'd skipped the tutorial entirely. Still, there was no point dwelling on it. She decided to focus instead on figuring out how to earn her skills properly. The quest log confirmed that this wasn't the starting zone, and progression quests here were meant to be difficult. She wasn't even sure the gathering quest was finished. The boy stood silently in the water, giving no clear answer either way. A flicker of worry crossed her face. What if the difficulty had been building from the start, and she was only now feeling the weight of it? George asked why she was alone in such dangerous woods. She admitted she was there to gather ingredients for medicine. He explained his own situation. His family ran a pharmacy, but he couldn't handle the mixing himself. Gathering ingredients, though, was something he was good at. She reminded him he'd nearly died earlier that day. He protested, insisting he wasn't some reckless punk who didn't take danger seriously. Still, he admitted it was dangerous to go without an adult, and that the adults around him weren't exactly reliable. By day's end, George had gathered a good haul of ingredients. Thanks to her help, grateful, the two agreed they'd searched enough for now and turned back toward Naval together. Suspicion crept into her thoughts. The gathering quest had gone too smoothly. Maybe the reward would be worth the trouble, or maybe George was hiding something more than herbs. She decided to stay close until she could gather everything needed for the trip to Windham. George mentioned he'd let her use his family's vacant room together. They pressed on, nearly at Naval. Sunlight broke through the canopy without warning. She staggered, gripping her head as the light hit her skin. Dizziness swept over her. Being in the woods so long had worn on her, and this, she realized, was the sunlight weakness tied to her vampire form. Her skin felt like it was burning, though her stats stayed untouched. Still, she was grateful the effect was only weak. She could only imagine what a pure-blood vampire would suffer under a strong version of it. George offered to walk beside her, shading her from the sun as they hurried home. A voice cut through the streets ahead, a man scolding someone loudly outside a round, sturdy building near the town's edge. Rudgar gripped George by the head, furious. He told the boy countless times not to wander into the woods alone, careless behavior that could get him killed. George protested weakly, insisting the ingredients mattered. Rudgar cut him off, reminding him that if it weren't for the young lady standing there, he wouldn't have made it back at all. Krim brushed off the gratitude, saying she was simply glad she could help. Rudgar apologized for dragging her into the family argument. She noted quietly how genuine the exchange felt, like watching a real family rather than characters in a game. Rudgar explained that the building was his pharmacy and introduced himself properly, flustered. Krim caught herself speaking too casually, slipping into a boyish tone before catching it. Internally, she panicked, remembering her character was female and that the truth would eventually surface. Still, it felt too late to explain now. She composed herself and simply introduced herself as Krim. George pointed at her, blurting that she was the pretty girl who had saved him. Rudgar teased him for it, ruffling his hair despite his protests. Krim, caught off guard by the compliment, admitted she wasn't sure how to respond to being called pretty. She wondered whether her in-game appearance was simply well-made, since she hadn't even seen her own face yet. George squirmed under his father's teasing, demanding he stop. Alone with her thoughts, she considered the strange possibilities of her new form, especially since her real face was male. She sighed, deciding not to dwell on it. Meanwhile, Rudgar hinted to George that the girl had clearly caught his interest, prompting the boy to shout him down and stomp off to clean the spare room. Left alone with Rudgar, Krim asked if they could talk for a moment. His expression shifted, quiet and searching. Rudgar admitted that George's late sister had always been sickly, and that their family's medicine could no longer treat her condition. He confided that George often slipped into the woods in secret, gathering ingredients on his own despite the danger. The pharmacy fell quiet. Krim sat alone for a moment, thinking of George's sister and her failing health, before deciding to look around town for now. She found George cleaning, murmuring to himself that he'd bear it a little longer for Juna's sake. Curious, Krim asked where the spare room was. Inside, Juna coughed weakly. George told her she'd get better once she rested, though the girl admitted she wanted to play outside instead. He assured her the ingredients he'd gathered would help, urging her to rest for now. Krim stepped into the doorway. George greeted her warmly, but her attention stayed fixed on Juna, troubled by the weight of the girl's illness. George admitted she'd likely seen it already. His sister had always been fragile, and her condition was worsening by the day. George insisted there was no stopping him from continuing to search for a cure. Even if Krim tried, he said he didn't know exactly what his father had told her. Krim thought quietly that this might cause trouble for Rudgar, but her decision was already made. She told George plainly that she wouldn't stop him. Relief broke across George's face. They shook on it, promising to gather ingredients together and do their best, a promise that would carry into the chapters ahead. Morning light stirred Krim from sleep as the fourth day of her confinement in the virtual realm started. Beyond, George's cheerful call greeted her. He was by then brimming with energy, ready to search for ingredients. Stretching by the door, she caught George musing aloud about her vampire traits. Without hesitation, he provided a robe to shield her from the sun, thoughtful and readied. Their routine was cut short when a beast emerged. Krim shifted forward to guard, ordering George to retreat. Krim swiftly assessed the foe, some kind of reptilian beast, and noted the terrain's risk near the river. Without warning, the beast lunged. She evaded but was nearly caught off guard by its incredible pace. Landing atop its back, she plunged her armament into its thick hide, struggling to stay balanced. A mighty tail swipe came coming, but Krim leapt plain, reading the assault easily. From overhead, she descended sharply, delivering a neat, crucial blow to the beast's skull. After defeating the beast, Krim pondered with satisfaction and located beast drop items in the water. She came back to George, reporting the fresh materials. He swiftly checked their utility with rising excitement. Noticing her stats, Krim viewed her ability proficiency had risen further than expected. She reviewed the list of newly unlocked abilities, selecting ones with practical uses in combat. Settling on Dark Bullet and Blaze Blood, she readied for the coming challenge with confidence. Krim examined a potent magic named Noble Red, which provided a temporary power boost at great risk. Regardless of its power, she deemed it too perilous, given the vulnerability it triggered following use. Later, she and George pondered on the slow progress of their mission. Now, 4 days in, jokingly, Krim imagined calling out for team members, although she hadn't met any other gamers yet. She located this was odd, especially since top gamers typically cleared early zones within days. As Krim surveyed the vast forest beneath, she started to realize just how immense the realm of Duo truly was. George's query cracked her thoughts, and she brushed it off with a grin, hiding her awe. With only one material departed to find, they selected to head back as dark clouds gathered overhead. Back home, George proved Juna's health had worsened, her power fading. They urgently reported the news. Just one ingredient waited between Juna and her medicine. Krim resolved to retrieve the final ingredient instantly, resolved not to waste any further time. George displayed he might know where it was, but their father objected. He feared their destination. The Black Forest came up, a sight tied to a mighty menace famed to all. At its heart lurked a monstrous bear, an apex predator few dared approach. Its savage nature had by then claimed lives, creating the trip perilous for even the bold. Their father cautioned that the bear in the Black Forest was no common beast. It was a disaster-level menace. Krim located it wasn't just a beast, but a raid boss meant for complete parties. Even she wasn't confident facing it alone. The risk was far too tall. George yet figured in her power and urged her on with hopeful remarks. But Krim, with a troubled gaze, owned she didn't think she could win. George dropped his head, apologizing for hoping too much. Krim softly assured him it was all right. Alone in her room, she feared about the future. No other gamers had reached, and shaping a team appeared impossible. Abruptly, she overheard a heated argument through the walls, something about the forest. Peering beyond, Krim spotted a restless crowd gathering, their voices tense and urgent. Ludgar addressed her with concern. The village men were angry someone had went into the forest alone. The villagers located missing tools. George had likely gone to collect the final medicine ingredient alone. Realization struck Krim. He had went into the Black Forest, the most perilous sight they feared. Resolved to stop him, she hurried to leave. But someone grabbed her arm to halt her. Ludgar pleaded with her not to go. The beast had claimed too many lives by then. Although cautioned, Krim insisted she couldn't wait. George's life might depend on her pace. Ludgar tightened his grip but softened his tone. Understanding Krim's urgency, he released her, choosing not to stop her. Krim pondered on George's trust and their shared trip. A memory of their promise surfaced. They would complete the mission together. Blaming herself for pushing the mission forward, she sensed responsible for what had happened. With newfound determination, Krim shifted to leave. She had created this choice and would see it through. Krim raced through the forest, resolved to retrieve the final ingredient concealed in a far cave. Guided by the event marker on her map, she pressed forward without hesitation. Upon reaching a waterfall, she spotted the cave. George had to be close by. Meanwhile, a system overview stated how NPCs like George mimicked human behavior, employing advanced AI. The realm reacted dynamically, generating quests from environmental cues and surrounding NPCs like George's family. As the realm evolved, further NPCs and quests emerged in response to gamer actions. These NPCs sensed emotions, pain, and could even die just like actual people. Krim acknowledged the system's logic, but George wasn't just an NPC to her. She recalled his grin and their promise to finish the mission together, no matter what. With her heart pounding, she went into the cave and yelled his name, hoping she wasn't too late. Krim leapt down into an enormous chamber, instantly recognizing it the boss arena. Spotting George huddled near a crystal outcrop, she hurried forward, heart pounding, relieved to find him alive. She pressed him to flee, but his warning came too late. Odd calm settled over the cave just prior to the ground trembled beneath her feet. From the shadows emerged a colossal beast, fangs bared, an ice-armored predator ready to strike. The system proved the boss encounter. Krim readied herself, knowing escape was no longer an option. She hurried the towering beast, fully aware this duel exceeded her current level's design. A towering beast-like beast loomed prior to the team, its presence shaking the frozen battlefield. One of the adventurers gazed in disbelief, recognizing it was far further than just a bear. It was something far worse. The beast roared and hurried, its enormous form descending like a shadow over their leader. With explosive pace, the beast lunged, narrowly missing its target, as the others scrambled to dodge. Krim located it wasn't just fast. Time itself appeared to distort with each of its movements. She attempted to maneuver around the beast, but its enormous strides covered too much ground. Its sheer size disrupted her sense of distance, creating it tough to scheme her coming move. Forced into action, she leapt into the air as the beast hurried forward beneath her. Krim activated her ability and dashed across the beast's back, armament drawn for a precise strike. Her blade struck, but the beast's hide was too tough. The armament snapped without piercing through. Striking the beast's neck proved useless. It was shielded by thick scales, a defense clearly meant to prevent instant defeats. Recognizing the tall durability of her foe, she coolly readied to activate an alternative ability. She released a dark projectile, one that ignored defense and dealt fixed damage regardless of resistance. The spell connected, but the impact was minimal, barely nudging the beast's health bar. Worse yet, concealed beneath the surface bar were 4 further HP gauges, revealing the duel had barely begun. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, she started charging a distinct spell with a clever scheme in mind. At the right instant, she cast a trap spell beneath the beast, causing it to stumble and lose balance. With its defenses briefly open, she unleashed herself tall into the air to seize the opening. As she fell, she readied a mighty downward strike, employing her complete weight and pace. She screamed with resolve, aiming to pierce the scales with one crucial blow. The force of the impact echoed as she drove her blade down with everything she had. A harsh snap came next. The armament broke once more, unable to withstand the beast's defenses. She weighed her options, knowing her stock of shadow arms was limited and fragile. Regardless of multiple attacks, the beast's health bar barely shifted, proving a drawn-out duel was impossible. Resolved, she located her only path forward was a precise, fatal strike that bypassed endurance. With intense determination, she pointed her blade to the beast's neck, declaring her intent to sever it completely. But prior to she could move, the beast let out a roar and lunged at her with startling pace. As the ground cracked beneath them, she scrambled to dodge, narrowly avoiding its crushing jaws. The beast slammed the earth with complete force, sending debris flying into the air. Amid the chaos, she shielded herself, unable to counter, as the ceaseless rampage persisted. She lost her footing as the ground crumbled beneath her, plunging abruptly mid-duel. In a flash, she was thrown back, barely avoiding a devastating strike that grazed her side. Blood trickled down her arm. Just one touch had disabled it, rendering her unable to duel properly. From afar, George viewed helplessly, realizing she was beginning to lose control. At this rate, she wouldn't survive. The foe's immense power departed her cornered and vulnerable. Instead of panicking, Krim maintained moving, relying on her vampire healing to recover her disabled arm. Out of nowhere, a little object collided with the beast's face, momentarily disrupting its advance. To her surprise, the projectile shifted out to be a basic stone flying through the air. From a distance, George had shifted forward, shouting boldly to divert the beast's focus. Realization struck. Krim's heart dropped as she viewed the beast redirect its rage to him. Krim's eyes widened as she spotted the shadow armament had pierced through. This time, it actually stuck. Just forward, George faltered, but yet succeeded to shout for someone to deliver the medicine ingredients. Without thinking, Krim hurried forward and shoved him aside as the beast's strike descended. She grinned with resolve, bracing for the impact in his sight. In the distance, George named her name, watching helplessly as she claimed the struck. Lying on the ground, Krim pondered on her failure, realizing she had been too confident to face the boss alone. Her tone softened as she owned her flaw, blaming herself for the scene. Tears filled George's eyes as he apologized, overwhelmed by guilt and emotion. Memories of the village and its people echoed through his mind as he whispered his regret. But Krim clenched her fist. She yet had an opening, one final spell fueled by Noble Red's magic. Activating her strongest magic, Krim readied a risky power surge, one that would leave her drastically weakened in 30 seconds. Regardless of the odds, she grinned with conviction, assuring George that she hadn't given up. An intense impact came next as she hit the ground near the beast's neck, aiming at the damage she'd by then inflicted. With each blow, she worked to strip away its hardened scales. The beast roared in agony, displaying her attacks were eventually reaching far. Krim's arm ignited with power as her body started to change. Her hair shifted, signaling a transformation triggered by desperation. Unleashing her ultimate magic, she activated Blaze Blood, ready to finish the duel. In the vast realm of Destiny Unchained Online, the rarest race was famed as Blaze Blood, a class imbued with volatile power and distinct risk. Her blood ignited, pushing her physical limits far beyond normal for a brief, crucial instant. With time draining and her body weakening, she readied herself to strike prior to collapse. She lunged to the beast, resolved to finish the duel. Her enhanced pace and power pierced its defenses, landing a vital blow. Krim studied the beast's movements, syncing her timing to predict its attacks and gain an edge. She hurried forward, aiming at the beast's vulnerable neck with persistent, centered strikes. Each blow chipped away at its defenses, and even observers were shocked by her precision. Regardless of the risk, she darted in close, risking everything to maintain pressure. With power waning, she found crucial action was needed prior to her limits broke. Krim steadied herself, bracing for a final strike. With each ounce of power she had departed, she unleashed into the sky, channeling all her remaining energy into a single, complete force dive. The impact connected with precision, her claw targeted directly at the beast's throat. Although the scales cracked under the force, the beast endured, yet moving. With only seconds remaining, Krim located the duel wasn't over yet. Krim clung to the beast, knowing this final clash would determine the outcome. With seconds slipping away, she delivered strike following strike, each one further desperate than the final. As the timer hit 0, her last blow cracked the beast, ending the duel in a burst of light. Later, in peaceful calm, her body stirred in bed. Awakening slowly, she recalled the name George. Krim awoke to a startling discovery. Her body had shrunk. Puzzled and disoriented, she rested up in bed, overwhelmed by her childlike form. Attempting to maintain composure, she proved her identity with Ludgar, who asked the scene softly. George stated that Krim had transformed right following the boss was beat, shocking everyone present. Ludgar and his team had rescued them both and escorted them safely back. Now reunited, they rested together, attempting to unravel the mystery at rear. Krim's unforeseen change, tracing it back to the activation of Blaze Blood and its immense toll on her body. She visualized the cost, the draining of blood and energy departing her, weakened and little, like fuel completely spent. Opening up at final, Krim displayed her actual nature, a noble red, a vampire, and by extension, a demon. Feared about rejection, she provided to leave, assuming her nature would disgust them. Instead, George waited firm, declaring that her courage mattered further than what she was. Krim listened silently as Ludgar echoed George's remarks, reaffirming that her nature didn't change how they saw her. With a warm grin, he informed her she was like family, someone who had saved lives and carried healing. Their gratitude poured out freely, and Krim grinned in return, touched by their acceptance. To restore her body, a special remedy was readied: blood. Regardless of hesitation, she drank it, accepting what she was. As Krim gazed into the cup, A odd hunger stirred within her, surprising even herself. She confessed hesitantly blood wasn't her thing. In fact, she was a vegetarian. George encouraged her to press on, reminding her she couldn't stay in that weakened form forever. Summoning her resolve, Krim shut her eyes and drank with determination. Abruptly, a vivid memory surfaced, one tied to dread, urgency, and flashing lights. A memory flashback, chaos erupting as a boy named Ku bit a classmate. Blood trickling from the wound. The surrounding students reacted with shock, shouting in disbelief as Ko trembled, overwhelmed by guilt. Regardless of the panic, the girl attempted to downplay the injury, insisting it was minor. With a soft grin, she reassured him, masking her pain at rear calm remarks. Krim awakened from the memory, shaken, questioning why she'd done the same. George knocked softly, relieved when Krim welcomed him within with a calm tone. She apologized for earlier, assuring him she sensed much better and had came back to her normal self. Although the taste of blood unsettled her, she attempted to brush it off, not wanting others to worry. A gift was provided, distinct equipment tied to the Empire's past, instantly lifting her spirits. With renewed energy, Krim recalled her aim, reaching Wyndham and starting her actual trip. Ludgar proposed Krim visit a trade city, places where adventurers gathered, and search for clues about Wyndham, with few options. She created her way to the plaza, ready to use the transport system. In a flash of light, she reached at her destination, an immense floating fortress named Valhallans. Surrounded by bustling gamers and towering structures, Krim marveled at the sight of the floating city. Far away, in the actual realm, a hospital silently consented a new patient transfer the cradle. In a calm lab, researchers exchanged brief thanks prior to one shifted away with intent. He neared a sealed capsule, addressing the person within his long unseen spouse with familiarity and sorrow. One further figure emerged, noting their child had by then aligned with one side of the conflict. Within a pod, a boy floated silently. One man figured the choice hadn't been conscious. Watching from the shadows, a woman whispered softly, urging her daughter to awaken soon. Krim reached at the floating city of Valhalla, startled by the number of gamers gathered. She was awed by its design and regretted not visiting earlier. Within, she spotted an enormous structure. Two fighters were battling with minor HP, drawing her focus. Realizing it was a PvP arena, Krim became excited and altered her plans instantly. She explored the city, observing raiders preparing for the coming challenge. Surrounded by noisy chatter, Krim started thinking about gear, scrolls, and future arms. Krim grinned to herself, embracing the idea that detours created the game further exciting. Curious about her surroundings, she selected to explore and was instantly drawn to someone with striking white hair. As she strode, a crowd swiftly gathered, showering her with focus and compliments. Puzzled by the reaction, she had yet to see her own reflection in the game. Eventually finding a mirror, Krim gasped her avatar was far further beautiful than she expected. Noticing her reflection, Krim was startled by how striking her avatar gazed. Her hair color waited out, drawing compliments from others. Although flattered, the focus created her uncomfortable being seen, as pretty clashed with her identity. She silently pondered whose face had been employed to generate her character. As snacking at a close-by cafe, she joked to herself about being born as a girl. Any awkward thoughts faded as she delighted in enjoying junk food once further. A man provided Krim plain food, startled she couldn't tolerate meat. In the lively cafeteria, Krim enjoyed her fries freely. The ability to eat without gaining weight created the game especially popular among female gamers. At one further table, an elf girl stated her scarce race, classified as a noble elf. Regardless of the title, her racial trait increased pain sensitivity, frustrating her. Close by, a goblin and an orc lamented their poor racial perks, one too specific. The goblin and orc defended their race choices, insisting rarity alone created them worth picking regardless of the drawbacks. Krim viewed them silently, finding their choices bizarre but oddly fitting. She pondered on how little was famed about scarce races, unlike the balanced basics that relied on default abilities. As thinking, someone cried out to her, catching her focus. A fresh gamer praised her robe, but also spotted her default gear, suspecting she was a newbie. A cheerful gamer named Elmir introduced himself, offering to guide Krim through the basics, his tone overly friendly, politely declining. Krim insisted she preferred learning things on her own, by then thinking of ways to distance herself. Regardless of her refusal, Elmir persisted, complimenting her looks, causing Krim to leave abruptly. As she strode away, she spotted silver rings on his hand, triggering a sense of alarm. Faltered, she backed off and apologized, but the tension between them swiftly escalated. Elmir abruptly blurted out Krim's race, identifying her as a vampire in public. The crowd murmured in surprise, and Krim faltered as her scarce status was exposed without consent. He pointed out her fangs and eyes, continuing to draw focus to her features. Then came a guild invite, creating it plain he was aiming at scarce races. Krim, unimpressed, granted a deadpan fake name and shut down his nosy questions. She masked her irritation as Elmir reacted to her fake name with delight. Prior to she could, he led her to an arena, eager to impress. He challenged her to a PvP match, suggesting he'd take it simple. With a confident grin, Krim provided a deal she'd join his guild if he could beat her. Yet she added a twist: if he lost, he'd stop recruiting her completely. Krim shifted into the arena as Elmir consented the challenge, marking the start of their duel. Krim steps into the arena, facing a confident knight who offers a duel in exchange for guild membership. Following 5 days of monotonous grinding, she eventually gets an actual challenge. She finds it odd that her initial rival is a flamboyant gamer more centered on style than ability. Analyzing his gear, she guesses he's a balanced build, a royal knight with human stats. With an intense gaze, Krim readies herself, resolved not to lose. The duel starts, and although Krim is fresh to PvP, her resolve remains firm. Her rival lunges in with confidence, but Krim meets him head-on, unfazed. She strikes fast and neat, departing him shocked by her pace and precision. An intense blow lands, the knight stumbles, clearly not expecting such force. As he scrambles to recover, Krim coolly considers her options to win. Krim aims directly for the knight's frail point, flashing a confident look as she strikes near his neck. He retreats, awed but wary, knowing the duel isn't finished yet. Their arms clash furiously, and he realizes she's relentlessly aiming for a swift, crucial blow. She charges in minor, catching him off guard with a sudden dash. Her coming move mirrors a top-tier tactic she memorized from elite gameplay guides. The knight tries to trap Krim mid-air with a shield ability, aiming to end it, but she twists mid-air, catching him by surprise and cracking through his guard. Krim lands a neat strike from overhead, bringing his health to 0 in one crucial blow. With a satisfied grin, she reflects on how enjoyable the duel was. He walks off victorious, departing behind a shocked but awed rival. Standing alone, Krim reflects on the duel, acknowledging her rival's power with calm respect. Elmir approaches her, praising the duel regardless of his loss, finding the experience refreshing. Krim admits she underestimated him, having assumed he wasn't serious about the game at initial, smiling sincerely. Elmir thanks her, saying the match helped him recognize his own purpose. With parting remarks, they go their separate ways, each altered in subtle but lasting ways. As they part ways, Krim eventually corrects him. Her name isn't Potato, it's Krim. Elmir chuckles, amused, then pauses in confusion, realizing something odd he spotted earlier. Back in town, Krim strolls through the crowd, satisfied. PvP had been far further thrilling than beast hunting. She reflects on her time in the village and is relieved to find her abilities yet keen. Ally rushes in with admiration, hugging Krim tightly following witnessing her whole duel. Krim receives a barrage of compliments about her appearance, as her allies gush over her transformation into a girl. Abruptly, she falters. Something seems off, prompting concern from everyone around her. Amid the chaos, she discovers that both of her allies have also joined the game realm. Their startled Krim never responded to their messages, realizing she had skipped the tutorial entirely. One of the gamers is displayed to be Furia Subaru, her competitive childhood ally. Now playing as Frey, Krim introduces one further recognized face: Subaru's twin sister, Hijiri. Now in-game as Freya, the team discusses shaping a team, and Krim hesitates following noticing something unsettling: a scar that shouldn't exist in a game avatar. Subaru boldly claims that pairing up with Hijiri would make them unbeatable, forgetting Krim entirely. Their lighthearted bickering over game roles erupts, as Krim watches, slightly exasperated. A flashback explains everything. Krim had been accidentally spawned in the wrong region, isolated from other gamers. The team discusses how to regroup in Naval, but they're unsure of each other's exact site. Abruptly, a stranger offers to guide them, although he clearly expects something in return. Krim came back to Naval exhausted, unsure whether her allies would arrive safely. The man who provided to aid appeared unreliable. As waiting, she centered on improving her axe abilities and clearing collection quests. Abruptly, she located a fresh shadow armament, catching her off guard. To her relief, Ryunosuke Frey and Freya eventually emerged, collapsing from the trip. He formally provided to escort the others to Naval without delay. Frey and Freya faltered upon learning none of them had actually reached Naval prior to. Ryunosuke owned he never unlocked it as a teleport point due to exhaustion during his final attempt. Yet he promised to get it right this time, but only if they consented to his condition. The request was vague, only asking for a bit of assistance on a minor matter. Following numerous failures, the team eventually reached Battered. But together once more, Ryunosuke confessed the trip had been far easier when he traveled alone, expecting stronger aid this time. Regardless of knowing the team lacked a tank, he hadn't anticipated such chaos, especially from Freya. The team repeatedly named for Krim, panicking as they dropped short to handle threats on their own. Krim viewed their ordeal, teasing Ryunosuke for hiding at rear stealth instead of helping. Prior to she could respond, someone pointed out her intimidating grip on the axe. The team located about Krim's housing achievement following many quests earned her a rundown cabin. Regardless of the poor condition, Krim had fun fixing it up and became absorbed in the work. Back at the cabin, a cheerful child named Juna welcomed Krim home with a running hug. Krim spotted Juna's energy had came back, although she softly reminded her to take it simple. Curious, her allies inquired about the unseen child now clinging happily to Krim. Juna cheerfully greeted everyone, calling them by name and expressing joy at meeting Freya and the others. As they strode, Ryunosuke noted how scarce it was to see such a close bond between a gamer and an NPC Krim. Hoping to join the upcoming barbecue, swiftly presented a guinea fowl as a gift offering. The delicious meal that came coming awed everyone, especially the yakitori grilled to perfection. As enjoying beer and praise, the men celebrated Krim's thoughtful contribution with noisy, satisfied laughter. Krim was startled to learn alcohol had no actual effect in-game, creating hangovers a thing of the past. As the adults chatted, Juna provided grilled vegetables to Krim, who gladly consented the plate. Regardless of the meal's variety, Krim's inability to eat meat was met with sympathy and laughter. Claiming a serious turn, she inquired Ryunosuke to reveal the condition he mentioned earlier. With a grin, he stated his request an assault on the Kaimei Pass. Ryunosuke displayed that Kaimei Pass was likely a concealed area, with scarce items for those who conquered it initial. He owned needing aid, proposing to split the loot in exchange for their aid. The zone was perilous, overrun by an aggressive ogre tribe that assaulted on sight. Arriving at Valhallant, he emphasized the need for tough allies to succeed. Freya and Frey inquired the cost as Krim weighed shaping a guild. Krim consented to the scheme, intrigued by the challenge, and eager to uphold their deal. Ryunosuke stated the destination, a canyon concealed past the Black Forest, not far from their current site. They reached a narrow crevice in the cliffs, marking the path to the pass forward. Crouching at rear cover, the team spotted the ogre village just beneath. As tension stood, Ryunosuke stated Krim would lead the infiltration alone. Krim waited prior to the worn bridge marking the entrance to Kaimei Pass, a sight wrapped in risk and mystery. She wasn't alone for long. Others emerged from hiding, acknowledging her courage for entering forward. Wishing her luck, they sent Krim forward. Although hesitant, she pressed on, blade in hand. Abruptly, the cliffside cracked. A concealed foe unleashed a surprise strike. Krim barely reacted in time. Surrounded by towering beast-men warriors, Krim located herself caught in a deadly ambush. Overwhelmed by sheer numbers, Krim started to query if she could hold out. The foes were ceaseless. Without warning, a mighty slash ripped through the battlefield. An unseen warrior had reached, moving too fast to track. The newcomer's strike shocked even the foe. She was not just tough, she was precise. The woman displayed herself as a fellow demon, apologizing for her earlier misjudgment. Introducing herself as Swordmaster Matu, she welcomed Krim and her allies without hostility. Krim located the game's mechanics favored racial dynamics. Bringing a demon allowed smoother relations with the ogres. Curious about Matu's title, the team located she was seen as a swordmaster, although she claimed to be a mere blacksmith. Teasing came coming as Matu jokingly guessed Krim's age, mistaking her petite frame for a child's. An elder demon presented a grotesque feast, insisting it would aid power. Matu's tone shifted grave, justifying harshness when under assault. Labeled a discount Oni, the vampire girl faced teasing for her lack of blood-sucking ability. Arriving at an enormous cliffside village, she and her team were welcomed and provided rest in a tea house. A towering warrior stated his victory, dismissing rivals as frail appetizers. Challenges were yelled as Oni clashed to prove power, their duels intense and ceaseless. Drinking, sparring, and repeating it was training born from chaos and stamina, not basic hostility. A challenge was issued: beat 3 Oni and earn a reward. Failure meant exile for the frail. Prior to anyone could react, one member of the team had by then vanished. Krim shifted up to face a rival, asking to join the trial regardless of not resembling an Oni. With intense energy, she dove into action, surprising everyone by starting the mission without hesitation. A mighty strike cleared the air. She vanished once further. The Oni was departed shocked, muttering in awe from overhead. A strike was released. Dark energy infused the armament as it descended. A enormous axe materialized mid-air and crashed down, clashing against the Oni's blade. In a flash, her rival dropped. Spectators viewed in awe as the duel ended instantly. Relaxed and confident, she acknowledged the outcome. Winning through force sensed strangely efficient. Roars echoed. One further Oni, furious over his brother's beat, hurried in without hesitation. A brutal swing came down with fury, but a quick sidestep cracked the rhythm of the assault. Shock came coming as the armament dropped short to land, momentum disrupted, and balance thrown off. Blades clashed, and regardless of the stumble, both fighters narrowly evaded disaster. Cheers erupted as Krim unleashed an intense counter, her allies by then confident in the outcome. Smiling with satisfaction, she noted the axe's power and flaws, fighting one-on-one since manageable once further. Ma too shifted forward with a grin, lifting her armament and expressing her intent to join the duel. Recognition hit instantly. Krim located Ma too was the final rival in the challenge. Krim shifted into the arena, facing a mighty horned rival. The crowd cheered, sensing the tension of the final match. With calm determination, Krim signaled her readiness. She targeted to enjoy the duel, not end it too swiftly. The clash started. Krim struggled to match her foe's immense pace and power, realizing she couldn't maintain up. Krim activated Fresh Blood Magic Slave Chain to change the tide. Chain struck, binding her foe. Krim employed the opening to ready her coming move. Krim unleashed an intense counterattack, her chain digging into the ground as her rival claimed a glancing struck. Regardless of the damage, Krim maintained her focus, choosing to wear down the foe's health little by little. Meanwhile, spectators spotted an odd disruption. Someone unforeseen appeared to have taken the rival's place. Realization hit as they pieced together the switch, understanding Krim's actual rival had altered. Acknowledging her ability, the horned warrior grinned, awed by Krim's power and adaptability. Krim located her rival had been aware of her weaknesses all along, regardless of appearing lenient. Gripping her armament tighter, she vowed to duel as herself, no longer gripping back. Her foe responded by unleashing a mighty stance, preparing a technique named Hidden Sword Kokano, reacted swiftly, intercepting the sudden assault with unforeseen precision. Thanks to earlier observation, she identified the move and stopped it just in time. The foe released a barrage of slashes surrounding Krim with synchronized illusions. Forced onto the defensive, she located blocking wasn't the actual issue. Clutching her armament tighter, Krim sensed something deeper concealed in the technique. Her axe cracked as she braced against the flurry, an unrelenting chain of 9 rapid strikes. As she backed off instinctively, her rival shifted into an eye stance, ready to strike once further. Krim released her spell mid-swing, but her rival's blade yet connected a devastating blow. Although her strike was targeted for the neck, Krim narrowly evaded the fatal struck rooted by the ground itself. Amused, the horned warrior praised her, as the spectators faltered over Krim's wounded arm. Fighting with one arm, Krim understood brute power wouldn't win. Tactic had to replace force. She extended her hand and cast Slave Chain, aiming to turn the tide once further. Chains unleashed to the warrior, but she stayed unfazed, coolly assessing Krim's direct approach. Surrounded by a web of magic chains, Krim centered her energy, waiting for the perfect instant to strike. Chains crisscrossed the arena, catching Krim's rival by surprise. The setup was unconventional, not how the technique was originally intended. Curious about her fresh blood magic, Krim selected to test Slave Chain on a close-by beast. Although she unleashed the assault boldly, the bird succeeded to dodge it with ease. Later, as walking, she abruptly tripped on a concealed chain. Puzzled and irritated, she pondered who had placed it there. Grasping the embedded chain, Krim located the spell stayed active even as the environment shifted. Drained and unsteady, she noted the risk. Without proper blood, the magic departed her vulnerable. The foe studied the scene, noting the chains that restricted movement. Regardless of the hindrance, they started planning a countermeasure. With a burst of pace, the foe hurried forward, tearing through the air and ignoring the restraints. Observers viewed the duel unfold with rising concern. Realizing Krim might not evade in time, their expressions shifted to panic. Krim swiftly evaded, swinging through the web of chains like a dancer in midair. She taunted her rival, luring them into motion. As the foe responded, Krim shifted unpredictably, weaving through the chains. Their duel escalated into a deadly game of agility and timing. Spectators viewed in awe as Krim evaded each strike with precision. Her agility awed even the most skeptical onlookers. In the heat of combat, she understood a single mistake meant beat. The coming barrage neared, and her focus sharpened. Although the rival's ability was tough, Krim spotted flaws. The chains were yet functioning, granting her room to strategize and retaliate. Her adversary yet stated the duel near its end. Regardless of the chain's interference, they readied to strike decisively. But Krim acted initial, slashing through the bindings. The field unsealed, and her rival reeled as their control cracked. Krim released her chain magic once further, hoping to catch her foe off guard. But her rival smirked, dismissing it as too late to matter. Refusing to back down, Krim invoked a heavy armament forged from shadows. Even in beat, her spirit stayed unbroken. The foe admired her tenacity prior to executing a mighty finishing technique. With confidence, she shifted away, declaring the duel over. Doubt soon crept in. Something sensed off. Krim had vanished and the result wasn't certain. Amid the dust and scattered armor, Krim's body was nowhere to be located. Shock filled the foe's eyes as they located Krim had survived and transformed once further. Now clad in mighty armor, Krim waited tall. She displayed that this desperate form came only when her blood reserves were nearly empty. Regardless of lacking combat abilities in this state, she cleverly employed her rival's assumptions against them. The heavy armament, although unwieldy, had its purpose. In a flash of movement and force, Krim unleashed a final assault. Her strike connected actual, claiming her third victory. Following the dust settled, an ally embraced her, teasing her shrunken size with affection. Krim's rival acknowledged beat with a smirk, startled by the trick that had secured the win. It wasn't the Krim they recalled, but it was effective. A system prompt triggered, and light swirled around Krim. She reached forward as her allies cheered. Her reward was waiting. Moments later, a fresh power awakened. Krim had acquired katana abilities, a scarce and coveted upgrade. Her allies gathered around. Awed knowledge of this technique was scarce, many dropped short to unlock it. But Krim had succeeded. Regardless of the trial's extreme difficulty, the reward stayed the same. The actual prize was proving it could be done. Amatu, yet smiling regardless of the loss, praised Krim's win, especially impressive given her outdated equipment. Krim owned that better gear would have created the duel easier. She pondered on how even her robe was starter level. Thinking about explaining her transformation, she paused. Mentioning the blood-sucking mechanic might stir painful memories for May too. Eventually, her body came back to normal. It simply claimed time, like slowly recovering mana. With the duel over, everyone readied to move on. Krim thanked her rival, and the team set their sights on Wyndham, ready for the coming adventure. The team reached at their coming destination, a vast desert, where keen rock formations pierced the dunes, and something huge stirred beneath the sand. Krim and her ally froze in shock, realizing they weren't alone. The scorching desert pushed Krim to her limit. Choosing a vampire class had appeared exciting until the sun's ceaseless heat drained her power with each step. Her teammates exchanged glances, realizing the game's extreme realism wasn't just physical. Even her mental endurance was faltering under the strain. Without waiting, Freya hoisted Krim onto her back. Refusing aid from others, she pressed on with determination. Regardless of the rising temperature, memories of Krim's earlier combat prowess lingered. Her agility and execution had exceeded expectations, departing her allies silently awed. One ally recalled a VR title Master of Swordsman, hinting at Krim's background. Her refined abilities abruptly created much further sense. Designed by Krim's father, it functioned further like a punishing training simulator than entertainment, demanding perfection and offering little mercy. Departed alone often, Krim spent her time immersed in it, shaping a bond with the harsh realm her father built. Regardless of her efforts over the years, she had never succeeded to beat the boss that towered prior to her. In the past, VR-based training was gazed down on, but over time, the stigma faded, and games like these located their sight in advanced learning programs. Among allies, Krim always located the slowest, yet none of them could conquer that impossible game, not even Freya, who granted up following failing miserably. Though unsure of her power, she figured she could eventually aid the team in a real fight. Abruptly, the ground shook beneath them. The tremor was recognized, ominous and rising, reminding Krim of a past encounter she hadn't forgotten. A monstrous beast burst from the sand, towering and violent. Its emergence cracked the calm, forcing everyone to brace for a desperate confrontation. The team's confidence wavered, overwhelmed by the grotesque form prior to them. Panic set in as the scene spiraled out of control. Refusing to back down, one teammate shifted forward, resolved to guard Krim. She located her resolve, promising herself she'd stand tough when it mattered. As panic set in, the team dashed to a distant rocky crevice. Doubt crept into Freya's tone, unsure if she could make it regardless of her earlier resolve. Overwhelmed by dread, she faltered and apologized, believing escape was impossible. In the midst of chaos, a narrow escape saved them both. Freya cradled safely in Krim's arms, Located, they had narrowly evaded death. Enormous sandworm now cast a vast shadow. For once, Krim waited unharmed beneath it, eventually protected by shade tough enough to shield a vampire. Even with safety secured, Krim's power dropped short her. Attempting to rise, she stumbled, unable to move under the sun's lingering pressure. An enormous impact shook the desert once further. As Krim was thrown aside by the force, her allies discussed regrouping at the close-by respawn point. Eventually, the team reached at a nighttime oasis town, an inn nestled between cliffs. Freya, trailing at rear, hid her disappointment. Although she had attempted, doubt lingered she yet sensed, like she hadn't truly contributed. Later at the inn, warmth and rest eventually came back to their bodies. Krim, dropped on the bed, slowly sensed her power return. As the team started logging out, they exchanged calm farewells. The day had been grueling, but they had created it through together. He reminded the others to rest. With a wave and brief thanks, the team started winding down following the day's trials. Departed alone, the remaining three shifted focus to planning. With fewer members, training strategies for the upcoming challenges required discussion. Freya proudly stated her lineage. She wasn't just an elf, but a scarce tall elf, a distinct race famed for magical prowess. They discussed their advantages: tall magic power, extended MP, and long ears. Balanced against poor physical defense, each trait mattered for future roles. Although lower confident, Freya displayed her decision. As her allies targeted to be mighty mages, she aspired to aid them as a healer. Freya nervously proposed a hybrid role, one who could heal but also endure. Although uncertain, she wished her idea created sense. Her allies responded with aid. A durable healer sounded practical, even necessary for their rising team dynamics. Encouraged, she grinned. Following her own vision for a character build she located would make the experience further enjoyable. Excitement rose. Plans for future abilities were by then shaping, and her commitment to supporting the team sensed stronger than ever. The team eventually reached Wyndham, the starting city. Although it marked a beginning for many, for them, it was simply the coming step forward. The team readied to form a guild, but there was yet one thing departed for Freya to experience prior to that could happen. Freya selected to explore the town, unaware that a mandatory tutorial sequence had just been triggered by her entry into the city. As her allies went shopping, Freya located too late she was locked into the system's long tutorial. As scripted NPCs pleaded for aid, the others silently chuckled, knowing how long it would take to finish. Krim emerged from the tutorial into a lively city, the virtual sky overhead filled with clouds. The chatter of gamers filled the air, congratulating her on completing the initial phase of her trip. Reflecting on the experience, she located she had missed some key duel mechanics as dozing off. Beyond the square, her allies regrouped. One had gathered gear, one further was building a guide on katana abilities, eager to profit from it. As they talked, one of their team ready to leave, weighed down by other obligations. He granted a brief farewell, expressing gratitude for their short time together, and strode off with a grin. Krim silently viewed the man leave, gripping back the ache of parting. Although he had only been a temporary guide, she sensed his absence strongly. An instant later, her focus shifted. With a spark of motivation, she reminded the team of their aim to establish a guild and lifted her hand tall to rally them forward. Thanks to rewards from their final mission, the team figured they had enough to proceed. Optimism filled the air, yet their initial attempt dropped short. Krim dropped onto the table, beat and annoyed. Gathered under the terrace, they reviewed the scene. Requirements were stricter than expected: further people, and more money than they had readied for. As the team readied to move, Krim was reminded of the open zone conquest. Time was short, and they required to act swiftly to participate. Prior to they could head out, a flashy stranger neared, overhearing their guild talk. He provided to let them join his own, confident and smug. Krim identified the man Elmir, an acquaintance from earlier. His sudden appearance stirred mixed reactions from the team. Memories of a past confrontation surfaced. Krim had declined his guild offer once and beat him in duel, departing a tough impression. Online rumors had spread rapidly since then, painting her with the intense, unforeseen reputation across the message boards. Krim acknowledged the scene but couldn't fully ignore the awkwardness surrounding her unintended reputation. Elmir, now desperate, lamented how rumors had spiraled out of control, turning him into a laughingstock online following their past clash. Suggesting a way forward, he proposed a casual match to plane the air. Krim, intrigued, swiftly consented. Regardless of her enthusiasm, uncertainty lingered. PvP was yet fresh territory for her, and team combat was an even greater challenge. With all three gathered, she pushed aside hesitation and proposed their initial team duel, energizing the team with determination and a mischievous glint. Within the arena's waiting room, Freya reminded the team that teamwork would be the deciding factor in their upcoming 3-on-3 match. They had acquired many fresh abilities, but ability interference created coordination vital. Plain communication was essential for success. Krim proudly claimed she had mastered numerous spells, although her limited memory betrayed her. Friendly teasing came coming, lightening the mood. To make the match worthwhile, they consented to request aid with guild funds regardless of the outcome, as part of the deal. Although uncertain, Krim sensed resolved. For the initial time, she would duel not just for herself, but alongside actual allies. Excitement surged as Krim and her teammates lifted their arms, fully ready to face their initial team duel. In the fourth arena, an official match was about to begin. The automatic commentator, AI Chingen, created her energetic appearance. Krim was shocked by the enormous audience. Elmir confessed they had advertised, but the turnout had far exceeded expectations. To calm the crowd, the team staged a forced display of camaraderie. Their exaggerated gestures only created it further obvious. Regardless of the awkward start, no one blamed each other. They had all chosen this path together and were ready to move forward. Confidence surged as Krim's teammates discussed their dual strengths, although she swiftly reminded them not to leave her out. Across the arena, their rivals studied the team's formation. Acknowledging Krim's power, they planned to focus their tactic around restraining her. To maintain it basic, the team devised a coordinated scheme. Krim would lead the charge, supported by healing and interception from the rear. With both teams in formation, the match started. The crowd viewed eagerly as the announcer recapped the rivalry between Krim and Elmir. Wasting no time, Krim dashed forward. It was her and Freya's initial time fighting side by side, and tension filled the air. Charging in without hesitation, Krim targeted the foe's head directly. Elmir shifted in, hoping to buy time for Freya to adjust. Their blades clashed mid-air. Regardless of Krim's aggressive swing, Elmir gripped firm, reacting with swift precision. Although Krim's assault missed, her rival showed that he had heavily invested in boosting his stats, granting him surprising agility for a tank. From the sidelines, foe spellcasters started chanting. The coming phase of their tactic had begun. Lightning paralyzed Krim, came coming by a binding wind spell. Trapped mid-duel, she located the foe was using coordinated restraining magic to shut her down. The team came coming their tactic, with Freya nervously casting a spell as planned. Krim waited, immobilized, awaiting recovery. Confusion spread as the wrong magic was employed, failing to remove Krim's status condition. Everyone froze in surprise. Krim stayed trapped. Freya, overwhelmed by nerves, apologized. Their rival seized the opening, acknowledging the gap in their coordination. She was abruptly caught by a mighty restraining ability, rendering her unable to move. One of her teammates activated a crystal and ordered a healing spell to be cast. Desperate, they attempted to assist Krim prior to the foe could strike once further. Prior to the spell could be completed, and rival fired a magic projectile at the caster, interrupting the process and halting the healing. One more foe hurried forward, calculating that Krim's position would block the wizard at rear her from retaliating. With precise timing, Krim was unleashed into the air by an ally's spell. The assault disrupted the foe's approach, revealing it was a strategic move to rescue her. With only 13 seconds departed, Elmir received the signal to act. He sprinted to the exact spot where Krim was expected to fall. Freya struggled to cast her healing spell as two foes monitored her each move, blocking her timing and keeping pressure on her position. Regardless of the odds, Freya centered intently. Her rivals stayed locked on her, revealing their tactic to prevent aid magic. Lightning struck across the field as orders were given to suppress the healer. A clash erupted, forcing Freya's side into complete defense. Krim plummeted helplessly to the ground, calculating the risk. She located if Elmir reached her mid-fall, beat would be certain. Only 8 seconds stayed prior to the restraints would vanish. Krim, yet falling, was descending faster than the countdown could guard her. As the ground drew closer, the risk intensified. If the restraints weren't removed prior to impact, the duel would be lost. Elmir had by then reached at the landing zone, waiting with his sword ready. His interception was inevitable. Elsewhere, an ally spotted Krim's peril. As preparing a counterattack, he was momentarily distracted by an incoming spell aiming at his position. Just in time, the mage unleashed a quick cast aqua shot. The incoming flame arrow was intercepted mid-air, halting further damage. An enormous burst of steam engulfed the arena, triggered by a sudden explosion. Confusion spread as visibility dropped on all sides. Freya's name was yelled through the fog. The dense mist stopped everyone's view, complicating the by then chaotic scene. Freya eventually responded, casting her healing spell in the midst of the confusion. Her focus gripped steady regardless of the pressure. Meanwhile, Elmir spotted Krim mid-air. He hurried with confidence, convinced her restrained state guaranteed his victory. But as he lifted his guard, Krim hit initial, delivering a mighty blow that broke through his stance and startled him. As a unseen glow split the air, a character from the stands reacted in awe. A scarce ability was being activated for the initial time. Spectators swiftly identified the move. Whispers spread Krim had just employed a katana ability, something no one had expected. Curiosity surged. One further gamer examined the blade closely, confirming its identity. The rarity of the ability departed them shocked. Announcers stated Krim is the initial to obtain such power. Her surprise move drew everyone's focus across the arena. With perfect timing, she deflected Elmir's strike. Freya's aide reached just in time to secure their counterattack. Krim tightened her grip and readied to strike. With confidence restored, she stated the actual duel was only beginning. At the arena's upper level, two cloaked figures viewed the match unfold. Their interest rose as the momentum shifted. One of them noted the unforeseen teamwork on display. The team on the field had clearly caught their focus. Among them, the white-haired girl waited out. Her performance departed a tough impression on the unseen observer. With a calm look, Krim activated a scarce katana technique, stunning the arena. Her blade shifted with practiced grace, and the aftermath of the ability lit up the screen at rear her. Among the crowd, allies gazed on with amazement. Their faces pondered admiration and disbelief as they processed what they had just witnessed. Roars of excitement exploded around her. Even the most hardened gamers couldn't contain their astonishment, shouting praises with wild enthusiasm. Caught off guard by the immense praise, Krim's confident aura cracked slightly. One ally eagerly pointed out the beauty of the effects like falling cherry blossoms in Duel. One further compared her to a lightsaber duelist, awed by her elegant parry. Conversations shifted away from the battlefield as spectators became enamored by Krim's presence. Regardless of the katana being visible, its associated abilities stayed an enigma. Even seasoned gamers couldn't determine what combination of abilities she truly possessed, fueling curiosity and tension. Recognizing the unseen variables, the tank shifted forward to confront her. Krim, composed and centered, readied herself. A sudden spear thrust came at her with force, yet she parried cleanly. Her defense extended beyond normal attacks. Dual abilities were countered with the same precision, with her melee abilities proved. Concern shifted to her potential with magic. The foe unleashed a flame assault, testing her ranged defense. Krim's abilities shocked her rivals as she nullified a magical assault with ease. Observers swiftly started analyzing her style, noting the repeated sheathing of her katana between techniques. With the coming wave imminent, allies readied for the worst. Krim stayed alert, as aid gamers stood ready to heal her at an instant's notice. Dodging blow following blow, she weaved between attacks and retaliated with swift slashes. Regardless of her agility, the pace started to show strain. Deflecting each strike demanded her complete focus, preventing any opening to counter or advance. Their declaration to manage the pressure hinted at coordination beyond individual ability, reinforcing their trust in Krim's defense. Krim's rival lifted his armament with confidence, preparing for a clash. Observers spotted Krim adjusting her stance, positioning herself at an odd distance. She activated her ultimate technique, drawing her katana with purpose. The hidden sword Kokano would decide everything in the coming instant. Hovering overhead the arena, Krim waited triumphant as her team's victory was announced. From across the battlefield, a knight gazed in disbelief. Although the distance between them was wide, she had taken a ready stance, boldly claiming she'd end it in under a minute. The knight's confusion rose as symbols ignited around her silhouette. The name Kokano surfaced in his mind like a warning. Her blade sliced through the space between them, striking with a force that echoed with the word Rin. He barely had time to react. In a single motion, she had sealed the gap. Her eyes locked onto his as their arms clashed in a blur of pace. The knight dug his heels into the ground, resolved to withstand the coming blow. Dust stood as he braced himself for impact. Regardless of his efforts, his stance faltered. A sudden force disrupted his balance, and panic flashed across his face. Realization struck he'd been caught in a spirit spell named Balance Break, cast with perfect timing. His footing lost, he became vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, Krim dashed past him. Her focus shifted to the healer at the rear, eyes locked onto the coming target. In a single motion, she slashed forward. Twin images of her assault collided into the shocked healer, tearing through his defense. The healer's body cracked into fragments, his form disintegrating in midair. A single name echoed MASH prior to silence dropped. Cheers erupted as the announcer proved his elimination. The coordinated strike by Krim and Frey had removed a key aid from the opposing team. Won Fo attempted to brace for the coming blow. Although escape was impossible at that distance, he readied to shield his vital points. Several little projectiles pierced his gear. The effect was immediate. Acid piercer corroded his armor, weakening his defenses drastically. Krim sealed in once further, blade flashing. She struck vulnerable joints with ruthless precision, departing the rival overwhelmed by sheer force. Members of Elmir's team persisted to fall one by one. The scene had shifted dire at this rate. Even 30 seconds appeared generous. Spectators yelled in disbelief. Krim and Frey's coordination was near flawless, turning the match upside down in moments. In the center of the chaos, Krim waited poised. Her calm contrasted the devastation departed in her wake, her presence now immense. Eyes narrowed, she readied her coming technique. A blade drawn slowly with calm intent glinted in the light. Elmir reacted just in time as Krim released her eye strike. His shield stood, narrowly blocking the deadly flash of steel. Krim released an intense overhead slash, her blade crashing against Elmir's lifted shield. Sparks flew as power rippled through the strike. Although the blow connected cleanly, Elmir stayed standing. A glance displayed the truth. It hadn't been fatal regardless of landing at his neck. Thanks to the tank ability Guts, Elmir had survived with a single point of health. One further ally shifted forward, resolved not to let her wipe them all out. Shock filled Elmir's look. His defenses had nearly dropped short. He located just how close he'd come to being taken out instantly. As his foot surged forward, he roared his resolve. This is the end. The clash was far from over. Krim absorbed the incoming blow with a swift block, shards scattering from her guard. Her focus stayed unshaken. Elmir reeled in shock. The tank ability Air Ride had just been activated, but not by a tank. It defied typical use. Earlier tactic discussions highlighted Krim's assault chain Rin, Pew, Tu, and Sha. With her current mastery, 4 consecutive strikes were possible. Knowing the cooldown risk, her team readied for backup. Freya, entrusted with her protection, vowed to hold the line if Krim faltered. With perfect timing, Freya struck. Her arrows flew with purpose, declaring she'd act when it mattered most, with complete faith in Krim. Elmir beat, the announcer stated the match over. Krim's team had successfully eliminated all rivals from the battlefield. Freya shifted forward with a grin, revealing she delivered the final blow. The final foe had only 1 horsepower remaining. Krim's team waited victorious as the arena erupted in cheers. The match had ended, and the results proved their flawless triumph. The highlight reel started, showcasing the most vital moments. On the screen, Krim flawlessly deflected a ceaseless barrage of attacks. Her precision and pace awed spectators. From the waiting room, her allies viewed with admiration. The crowd praised her grace and power, as Elmir's effort was also acknowledged. Cheers for Krim persisted as the broadcast displayed her dominance. She had earned admiration for both ability and charm. Later, a bold confession disrupted the instant. A masked gamer inquired both Krim and Freya to date him. Shocked, the girls inquired his sanity. Following the match, a commotion cracked out as multiple teammates dragged a cloaked man away. He had attempted to date both girls at once, earning keen scolding from the others. Krim unsealed her menu to find a flood of ally requests. Shocked by the focus, she couldn't even add further. Everyone had struck their ally limits. Freya silently claimed control, deleting the requests one by one. With a sinister grin, she stated herself Krim's manager, denying others any access. Close by, a warrior expressed regret. He'd wished to recruit Krim but understood he'd lost his opening, smiling with renewed determination. He vowed to beat them in the coming guild ranking duel. Krim and her team emerged puzzled by the announcement of a guild ranking duel. One teammate inquired if it was distinct from the open zone conquest, revealing their lack of familiarity. To clarify, a veteran stated that the event was seasonal, pitting various guilds against each other in a structured competition to determine standings. Ranking up provided unseen rewards, and as the rules were basic, the stakes felt tall. Krim listened intently, eyes fixed on the leaderboard. The event would unfold as a huge-scale duel royale, where only one team would remain victorious. Strategic ideas clashed. One member preferred stealth, one further peace. As Krim's eyes sparkled at the figure of charging headfirst into chaos. As discussing the rising competition, gamers noted the influx of pro teams entering the game. Even veteran PvPers from other titles had begun migrating to the platform. The game had exploded in popularity. Streamers, tone actors, and cosplayers announced their participation, turning Destiny Unchained Online into a cultural phenomenon. guilds specializing in huge-scale GVG combat were by then shaping the competitive scene was evolving rapidly. Krim listened in awe, startled by the scale and depth of the guild landscape. Her curiosity about the top contenders rose stronger. One such force was the Black Wolf Squad, a beastmen-only guild famed for crucial tall impact strikes. Two elite guilds caught focus. Tukai Company, famed for mighty gear and far pockets, dominated with hired power. Meanwhile, Lily Garden startled many with noble heiresses, displaying unforeseen might. Hearing about the lineup of extreme teams departed Krim's team overwhelmed. The competitive pressure sense suffocating even prior to the duel started. Nord Glacier, led by Saul Leon, and Azure Dragon Tempest, led by Xiao, carved paths of destruction, eliminating each zone boss in their way. They were plain favorites to win. Krim's allies inquired their chances against such fearsome forces. Instead of worry, Krim admired their names, resolved to create one even cooler for her own team. Over-the-top guild names rolled off the screen, each one bolder than the final. Some were poetic, others downright absurd, yet all carried a odd charm. Daydreams about naming were cut short by a nudge to reality. No guild existed yet, and time wasn't waiting. Without hesitation, Elmir transferred the complete guild creation fee. A soft beep proved the aid, along with a warning registration had to happen soon. Relief softened her look. Aid like his meant further than remarks, and plans eventually started claiming shape. Silverwing's crew strode off with confidence. Departing at rear one plain message, they were aiming for the top. Wyndham's Central Park became the coming rally point. Urgency weighed on the team, they yet lacked 2 guild members, and the deadline crept closer. Discussion shifted practical. Covering the rear had become too much for Krim alone, and they required someone up front to share the pressure. Ideal candidates were imagined: tall, muscular, terrifyingly intense. A fantasy warrior with both power and presence. Abruptly, someone matching the description emerged close by, towering, calm, and intense. He met their gaze with a query mark on his face. Confusion came coming. He wasn't acting like a gamer yet. Something about him sensed strangely recognized. As evening neared, teammates logged off one by one, remaining online. Served no purpose for now. Departed at rear on a calm bench. Krim pondered her coming move. 2 further guild members were yet required, and ideas were running dry. A soft yawn fled. The game's sunny skies contrasted the late hour in the actual realm. Drowsiness started creeping in. Just as her eyes sealed, someone's tone cracked the silence. A cheerful girl with fox ears leaned over the bench, curious and smiling. With a confident grip on her staff, the stranger stated victory. She'd located exactly who she was looking for. 2 girls peeked over the bench, one of them declaring success. They had located the target they were waiting for. They neared Krim and guided her hands softly, placing them around the handle of a katana. Their actions were deliberate, as if triggering something specific. As they persisted their movements, one girl whispered instructions as adjusting Krim's grip. Krim, caught off guard, drifted into unconsciousness. Abruptly, chains sprang out and bound Krim's body tightly. Her eyes snapped open in confusion. Yet restrained, Krim inquired what had happened. One girl smirked, identifying herself as an NPC and finalizing a concealed system update. One of the girls displayed a loophole. Hanagiku could gain katana abilities by deleting and recreating her character. Prior to Krim could process the idea, she faltered, struggling under the sudden pressure of chains, and yelled objections. Overlapping voices argued about character data, abilities, and intentions. Amid the chaos, someone pointed out Hanagiku had been caught. A screen from the game's forum proved suspicions. There was talk about a white-haired fairy NPC and concealed abilities. Krim clarified the truth at final. That rumor was wrong. She wasn't an NPC. She was a gamer, standing her ground. She attempted to reassure the girl, but spotted she had grown calm. Hanagiku dropped her ears, apologizing for the confusion. To lighten the mood, Krim provided some food. Hanagiku consented, and the 2 shared a meal on the bench. As watching her eat, Krim silently viewed Hanagiku's little frame, questioning her age and how someone so young played the game. Cracking the silence, Krim inquired about the katana. Hanagiku swiftly stated she bought it from a close-by shop. Startled, Krim pondered aloud about Wyndham's market. Although arms were common, there yet appeared to be something odd about it. Krim clutched the katana but couldn't unsheath it. Without proper abilities, the armament locked itself, clearly a trap meant for beginners. Hanagiku's eyes sparkled as she recalled the instant she saw Krim duel inspired. She inquired to be taken in as her disciple. Flustered, she swiftly added a request for guidance, specifically how to unlock katana abilities, although she attempted to hide her real motive. They shifted to a merchant for aid, but he displayed no favoritism, demanding payment regardless of her age or circumstances. Attempting to hold back tears, Hinagaku presented her savings. Krim shifted in, joking lightly to ease the tension in the air. Krim listened as Hinagaku stated that the merchant intended to reveal information about katana abilities as selling kaimei pass swords. With a sly grin, the merchant owned his scheme. He had gathered materials and involved the Oni tribe to craft the arms. Yet, the effort backfired. The NPC blacksmith abruptly declined to forge anything, triggering an unplanned in-game event. Noticing an opportunity, the merchant proposed a deal if they helped resolve the scene. He'd waive the fee. Hinagiku volunteered without hesitation. Elsewhere, actual realm scenes unfolded. Someone admired expensive bags, unaware of the brewing challenge on the virtual battlefield forward. Two girls cried out to their ally, asking if she had created her decision. They had by then chosen their own items, yet unsure. The girl paused. Her allies provided to aid, teasing her for always being indecisive. Just then, a call came in from Kogu. He inquired for her aid with something in duo. She consented and set the time and site. Later, in-game, the site famed as Kaimei Pass came into view. She had reached on her own. Awed, she gazed around. The zone was calm, filled with Oni villagers going about their peaceful day. Krim cried out cheerfully as two recognized gamers reached at the village, waving in response to her greeting. They instantly identified Hinagaku, the young girl Krim had mentioned earlier. One of them remarked on her surprisingly young age. Hinagiku greeted them with her usual energy, as Krim casually stated that she had ended up helping her with a few things. Yet, one of the newcomers inquired the scene. Momentarily suspecting Krim's motives, she firmly denied anything inappropriate. When inquired about Ryunosuke, Krim owned they had spoken briefly. He had simply informed her to handle things yet she liked. Krim gathered the team and proposed they split up to investigate the event. Each person selected a distinct zone to explore. Hinagiku eagerly provided to check out the food stalls. Krim, meanwhile, searched for someone named Mei 2. Eventually, Krim located her atop a ledge beneath the trees. The serene atmosphere created the site feel special. Mei 2 identified her swiftly and was startled by how soon Krim came back. Yet, she welcomed her back without hesitation. Following exchanging a few remarks, Krim stated the problem. She came on behalf of Ryunosuke, asking about the halted armament production. Manitou displayed the problem the village couldn't forge katanas since they lacked a scarce material named the Steel of Hatred. This steel, imbued with intense emotion, was necessary for creating demon swords. Ryunosuke had planned to commercialize them. Krim listened as MA2 stated the mine's collapse. Rumors blamed beasts or an accident. Those who went into never came back. There was a darker suggestion they had dropped short to pray at the shrine, and were cursed as a result. Krim trembled at the word curse. Matu smirked, amused by her reaction, and casually assigned her the mission to investigate. Reached at the foreboding entrance of Mount Rakume, a site wrapped in chains and heavy silence where lost souls wandered. Regardless of her wide eyes and trembling hands, she insisted she wasn't afraid. Krim received guidance from an ally and set out to her coming objective without hesitation. Her destination was plain. Although she understood the coordinates, the mention of a sacred mountain unsettled her. She paused, chewing nervously on a snack. Arriving near Mount Rakume, she reviewed the map. The zone was low menace, and mining was encouraged, although risk yet lingered. At the foot of the mountain, the team gathered. An eerie chill filled the air. The site radiated an ominous aura. A masked Oni joined them, ready to lead the way. Their mission uncovered the truth at rear the disappearing. Oni Krim waited at the gate, unimpressed and ready to leave. Her allies, further eager, inquired her sudden decision. Hinagiku teased her softly, wondering if dread was the reason. Krim denied it, but her look remarked otherwise. She stated she didn't dread horror, just hated being startled. Her reasoning was oddly specific and unconvincing. Abruptly, a calm, grotesque figure emerged forward. Krim, regardless of her remarks, screamed and assaulted in panic. Attempting to comfort her, Krim provided Hinagiku her hand. The gesture startled them both, briefly easing the tension. The Oni stated that the region was famed for its distinct doors, attracting miners from distant lands. According to legend, a meteorite once crashed here, violently reshaping the land and opening a path to odd materials. Although tragedy came next, whole villages ruined. The promise of scarce resources drew adventurers back over time. The mountain earned a grim reputation. Frequent accidents and deaths granted rise to whispers of vengeful spirits lurking beneath. From the cursed soil, a dark crystal-shaped steel infused with centuries of hatred and unresolved malice. At the shrine's base, Krim was cautioned of mischievous spirits close by and darker ones deeper within. A prayer was advised for protection. As her allies discussed tactic and foe scaling, Krim had by then wandered off. The shrine's presence unsettled her further than it reassured. Close by, the others located Krim nervously praying beside the Oni. Her unease was obvious, prompting light teasing from her allies, soon following. The team reached at an enormous rocky basin under moonlight. It marked the entrance to the mine rumored to hold cursed steel. As the Oni readied his tools for excavation, he inquired the others their plans. Krim paused, unsure whether to follow or stay back. The team proved it was safe to dig in the zone. With no ownership claimed over the land, tools were generously provided. Rather than wait idly, they consented to mine as keeping watch for any odd occurrences. Following all, someone had mysteriously vanished here prior to. With shouts of enthusiasm, the team grabbed their tools. They imagined a gold rush, resolved to gather scarce ore to improve their equipment. Krim led the charge, striking the earth with centered effort. Echoes of clanking metal filled the mining field. Eventually, she unearthed something odd. Clutching the unseen mineral in her hand, Krim examined it closely, unsure of what she'd just located. Excited cheers erupted as Krim and Hinagiku triumphantly gripped up the steel of hatred. Both had successfully struck the mother lode. As the team basked in their mining success, Krim wiped her brow, exhilarated by the tough work. Krim's focus drifted to something odd close by. A faint shimmer caught her eye along the rocky slope. She neared a curious bag tucked between stones. Her allies identified it as a loot drop likely from a fallen gamer. The system proved it. When gamers die, their collected resources become lootable. The bag's presence meant someone had perished, likely assaulted by a ghost during mining. Hinagiku hurried over, calling the others with urgency. Krim debated whether to claim the loot, knowing the risks of looting others' drops. With wide eyes, Hinagiku displayed numerous ore bags scattered across the zone. Krim paused, recalling someone she feared it might belong to. Upon arrival, the team waited frozen. The field was littered with loot bags, far too many to have come from a single gamer. Krim's look hardened. The sheer quantity proposed and whole team had been wiped out, possibly even further. Regardless of the carnage, no beasts were close by. The eerie stillness departed only one conclusion: something unseen had done this, and it might yet be watching. Krim knelt beside a cluster of loot bags and spotted crossbow bolts stuck in the ground. She inquired whether the game counted vanished gamers as dead. She studied the bolts further closely, puzzled by their angle. Something didn't feel right about how they were embedded. Looking up, she theorized the projectiles had rained down from the cliffs overhead. A surprise assault appeared likely. Close by, her ally examined a few loot bags and created a troubling observation: none contained scarce ore, only common materials. Realization struck. The scarce resources had been deliberately stolen. Krim gasped, remembering she had departed Freya alone in the risk zone. Concealed in the rocks, a cloaked figure readied a crossbow. Unaware, Freya hummed to herself as casually mining close by. Krim sprinted to her ally, shouting a warning. Freya, delighted by her mining success, shifted with a cheerful grin. Prior to she could react, a bolt streaked through the air. Krim threw herself in front of Freya, deflecting the shot just in time. A team emerged atop the cliff under the moonlight. Their leader smirked, declaring ore too valuable to ignore, and demanded they surrender everything. The party swiftly located the truth: these were gamer killers. A coordinated squad of experienced assassins. This was no opening encounter, it was an ambush. Krim assessed the foe formation. This wasn't just a random team of killers, they shifted like a coordinated PK guild. As her team confronted them, the truth came out. The earlier loot field belonged to this highly team stolen from ambushed victims. The foe leader smirked, unfazed. She claimed gamer killing was a valid tactic under game rules, a legitimate playstyle, not a crime. One of her allies pointed out that Krim's team had unknowingly carried a scarce mob with them, justifying the ambush. Krim located the mystery of the vanished gamers. The PK guild exploited the rare foe as bait to farm ore and victims. To everyone's shock, the party of gamer killers shifted out to be the exact target listed in the subjugation quest Krim's team had consented. Krim processed the scene. In many games, attacking NPCs triggered quests, but this team had somehow manipulated the system to become mission targets themselves, rather than deny it. The PK guild embraced their villainy. To them, being hunted only created the game further satisfying. Their leader stated the twisted brilliance at rear their scheme by being marked for subjugation. As waiting between ambushes, they relaxed and chuckled. For them, this wasn't just a tactic, it was farming efficiency, weaponized through deception and bloodshed. Krim studied the scene and stayed calm. Since the menace wasn't supernatural, she sensed confident. Her team grasped their foes were skilled in PvP combat. With an intense glare, Krim issued a bold challenge, provoking the PK leader's rage. Under the complete moon, a team of cloaked hunters emerges from the shadows. Their leader, with a confident grin, declares the beginning of the hunt. Sensing the incoming menace, Krim and her allies ready themselves. One of them urges the others to fall back, bracing for impact. As Krim locks eyes with the foe, an odd sensation creeps over her. Puzzled by the cryptic focus, she tries to make sense of the unforeseen remarks. Abruptly, chaos erupts. An intense warrior crashes through their defenses, catching them off guard with a surprise ambush. Reacting swiftly, Krim leaps forward. Her intense glare meets the attackers, cutting through his mockery. The attacker's armament slices through the air and lands a solid blow. Caught off guard, Hinagiku staggers backward from the force, crashing to the ground. She scrambles to recover. The foe mocks her fall as one further teammate rushes to her side. Krim's keen gaze surveys the battlefield. Realization dawns this wasn't a random skirmish, but a coordinated trap from the start. Regardless of the pain, Hinagiku reassures the others she's unharmed. Her spirit remains steady, although the assault clearly rattled her. The grinning foe retreats with feigned politeness, his tone laced with mockery. Krim watches, her grip tightening. Foe retreats, heading straight for his allies. Krim's team swiftly realizes he's not running. He's regrouping for a larger strike. Krim warns the team to stay alert. She senses further foes may be hiding close by, waiting to pounce once more. From the shadows, a figure with a twisted grin emerges, conjuring a magic circle. Her taunt signals something far worse is coming. Without warning, hordes of tall-level beasts flood the battlefield. The team finds themselves completely surrounded by summoned beasts. Amid laughter and mockery, the ambushers gloat. They never intended a fair duel, only total domination. With confident grins, two foes step forward, ready to take over the coming phase. They promise to handle things with enthusiasm. One of them preps a mechanical crossbow, loading it swiftly. He apologizes mockingly for what's coming in escalation and pace. A barrage of bolts rains down from the cliffs. Amid the chaos, one strike lands actual, forcing the team into retreat. Krim shouts a desperate call for healing. She spots 3 crossbowmen overhead and realizes they're pinned and exposed. Freya responds at once, casting healing magic. Regardless of the pressure, she stays centered, moving to aid the coming wounded ally. A hulking foe crashes through the wall, aiming at Freya. His eyes lock onto the healer, knowing her aid is vital. Without hesitation, he lunges forward, axe lifted tall. Freya reels back, startled by the sudden charge. Just in time, an ally intercepts the strike. Arms clash violently as the duel intensifies around them. Krim rushes to guard the team, declaring no one can be lost. She confronts the foe head-on, eyes burning with resolve. Meanwhile, Hinagiku struggles under pressure. Regardless of magical aid, the front line is collapsing fast. With the front lines in disarray, one member volunteers to eliminate the crossbowmen, causing chaos from overhead. Just as they ready to move, foes close in. A thunderspell is cast to suppress the beasts circling them. Regardless of the effort, precise cover fire from the cliff disrupts the team's movements. An arrow lands, forcing them to react defensively. Their foe coordination proves far better than expected. Confidence starts to waver under the ceaseless pressure. Meanwhile, the Oni remains untouched. As an NPC, the beasts ignore him, an unforeseen advantage the team might be able to use. The halberd-wielding figure persists fighting undisturbed. Shock spreads as it is spotted. No beast is aiming at him at all. A teammate speculates. Could he be flagged as an NPC, or is there a hidden method to avoid beast aggression? But the theory crumbles. The man dodges a blast with precision. He is indeed a target, just highly aware and agile like it. Suspicion lingers. Is there some condition at play that sets him apart from the others? Abruptly, odd nails appear on a teammate. Even healing magic fails. A fresh and unseen status ailment has begun. Freya panics as the unseen effect worsens. The odd nail embedded in her body grows further threatening with each passing second. Krim realizes the risk a delayed ability could cause fatal damage if not cancelled swiftly. Yet, the foe starts to flee. With no time to chase, Krim turns her focus to pushing forward. She rushes to Freya's side through the foe ranks. A ruthless team of gamers initiates a planned PK raid, aiming to slaughter others for scarce item drops. Their leader coldly declares the outcome inevitable. The attackers strategically encircle their targets within a mountainous region, employing cliffs and hordes of beasts to block all escape routes. From overhead, they observe as their prey is overwhelmed. Surrounded by steep cliffs and beasts, the trap team faces impossible odds. Amid the chaos, Krim's team struggles. Freya is under assault, but the foe swarm makes it impossible to identify the assailant. With a calm grin, Krim strikes decisively. Her spell lands actual. As she confronts the foe, she declares the duel over. As Hinagaku panics, the team realizes their master is too far to assist. They've only lasted this long due to Freya's recovery magic. A grim figure forms if Freya collapses. The whole team's health will be drained until they fall one by one. Scanning the battlefield, an odd entity is spotted. Unlike the others, it isn't moving. Its eyes remain fixed on Freya. Although motionless, it might be the actual attacker, its gaze alone, halting her recovery. With foes crowding the path, desperation sets in. One final aqua shot is released, but faith starts to fade. A confident sniper spots a lone target chanting and readies a headshot, noticing it is simple practice. Prior to she can fire, a dagger shatters her focus, slamming into her face and departing her shocked. Disoriented, she scrambles to understand the assault's origin, but can't locate the assailant. A swift figure emerges, eliminating the sniper instantly. Shock spreads. Someone unforeseen has went into the fray. Confusion grows. The white-haired girl struck from an impossible distance, prompting foes to query her allegiance and intent. One gamer notices something odd. Krim isn't being targeted by the beasts. The foe leaders begin to suspect something is off. With the gamer killers distracted, Krim sets her focus on the menace looming over Freya, resolved to act as she can. Warning call identifies the actual attacker. Krim swiftly locks onto the hovering entity threatening their healer. Without hesitation, she draws her armament and takes aim. Knowing the success of her shot is vital, the arrow flies. Krim charges in, deflecting multiple strikes mid-air as she closes in on her target. Krim cuts through foes effortlessly, drawing focus with her katana. Some begin to recognize her as the gamer from recent forum buzz. Freya's allies eventually query why Krim remains untouched. An explanation follows. She's under shrine protection, concealed from evil spirits. A prayer at a close-by shrine had granted her a divine buff. Krim had performed it at the start, unknowingly gaining immunity. The site is displayed as a mining zone, creating shrine buffs for peaceful gathering, a logical feature. With the truth grasped too late, Krim launches from overhead, blade targeted straight for the foe's core. Krim closes in with the intense strike, ending the menace. Her assault lands neat. This marks the end of the foe's interference. The beast's core shatters. Panic spreads among the PK team, but relief washes over Freya's allies. Krim reached just in time. With risk momentarily halted, the team decides to retreat. The beasts lurking deeper in the mountain are too tough to face now. Foes rush to intercept their escape, annoyed by the delay triggered by Krim's intervention. Regardless of concerns about departing her at rear, her teammates trust Krim's pace and power. She can handle herself without issue. Krim halts, sword drawn, instructing Freya to lead the others away. Her stance signals intent to hold the line alone. The foe commander issues a command. Dozens of foes descend, surrounding Krim. A final confrontation starts under her unwavering gaze. Krim waited alone in the battlefield, her presence mocked by foes who saw only a beginner in default gear. Unfazed by their condescension, Krim declined to back down. She rejected a false offer of forgiveness, her look hardened by resolve. The foes slowly drew their armament, accepting the challenge. Although they pretended indifference, a concealed eagerness for duel flickered in their posture. In a sudden clash, blades collided. Krim met the foe head-on, neither flinching nor falling. The air crackled with energy as duel commenced. Regardless of the foe's taunts, Krim maintained her focus. Little and underestimated, she responded not with remarks but with ability, swift, keen, and deliberate. Krim studied her rival's gear, noting how the red cloak drew too much focus. Regardless of the strikes, her rival stayed composed, irritated by Krim's silence. Suspicion rose. Krim hadn't displayed her complete abilities yet, and the unease started to spread. Without hesitation, Krim unleashed into a spinning assault, the momentum slamming into her foe's guard. Each blow displayed the gap in power. Her rival struggled to grasp how much Krim had invested in raw power, disbelief flashing across her face. Krim shifted with brutal rhythm, chaining strikes in rapid succession. Her ceaseless assault overwhelmed the rival, departing little room to counter or even recover. Doubt clawed at Krim's rival as she attempted to maintain distance. Krim's agility defied her appearance. Default gear shouldn't have allowed such precision, and panic set in swiftly. Krim accelerated, dodging wide swings and pressing forward with keen, neat strikes. Her movements flowed with purpose, forcing her rival to retreat and break form under pressure. Desperation replaced arrogance. Wide-eyed and breathless, the foe gazed at Krim as if noticing a completely distinct being, something far beyond expectation. Recognition started to surface. That stance, that rhythm, Krim's fighting style, triggered a buried memory, one too perilous to ignore. Wounded and cornered, the foe faltered. Krim, unwavering, waited, tall and calm, her presence alone enough to silence any final taunts. Krim assessed her rival's ability and selected to retreat. She relied on Frey as preparing to regroup with her allies. The team runs in panic, debating whether to leave Krim at rear. Doubt lingers, but urgency outweighs hesitation. They justify the choice. Krim is skilled in PvP and doesn't need to deal with the beasts flooding the zone. Yet forward lies even greater risk. Swarms of beasts block the path, and if they're caught, it'll be over. A dark spell explodes near them, forcing them to dodge. The foe tightens the trap, departing no room to escape. In desperation, one turns to Frey, hoping he has a scheme. The scene grows dire as tension builds. Frey admits he has no scheme, departing the team annoyed as panic starts to take hold. As they press forward, Frey reveals he wears fake glasses solely to appear intelligent, sparking disbelief among his teammates. The scene devolves into a scuffle, with allies fighting over the glasses in a desperate attempt to claim leadership. Abruptly, a towering foe charges following them, prompting a frantic retreat as the team scrambles for safety. From at rear, a tone calls out defiantly. Krim returns, ready to duel, refusing to abandon her allies to risk. Krim braces to guard as the foe charges. But prior to the assault lands, Hinagiku intercepts, halting the blow with precision. An intense clash erupts. Hinagiku and Krim move in unison, striking together with keen timing that splits the foe's advance. Their allies, shocked, watch Hinagiku land cleanly. She had parried a heavy armament mid-air, earning sudden praise and surprise. Reflecting on her actions, the others realized she had instinctively countered a surprise assault without hesitation or delay. Transfigured, inexperienced, Hinagiku's actual ability becomes plain, calm, and composed. She stands ready, her blade steady and eyes keen. The team prepares for the coming confrontation. With confidence in her abilities, Hinagiku is chosen to handle the masked pursuer. Without warning, a fast-moving projectile tears through the air. A mechanical foe rushes from the front, adding pressure to the by-then tense scene. Both threats coordinate, forcing the team to split their focus. Dodging attacks, they realize the foes are deliberately aiming at their path. Rumbling rock interrupts the chaos. The cliff wall starts to break apart, crumbling rapidly under the impact of sustained attacks. Krim calls out just in time. She pulls Hinagiku to safety as the falling debris crashes at rear them, narrowly avoiding disaster. Freya weighs the risk forward. Sticking to the cliff's risks being surrounded, but hesitation could cost them further. Without delay, the Oni steps up as their frontline shield. His enormous form offers cover, creating him the perfect tank for the team's advance. With renewed momentum, they push through the beasts. Krim calls out instructions as Freya supports with healing from at rear. Frustration builds on the foe's side. The Oni's durability creates a near-impenetrable defense, allowing the team to stay concealed and mobile. At rear, clenched teeth, their rival curses the tactic. Teaming up with such a scarce unit has tipped the odds heavily in Krim's favor. Oni pushes forward relentlessly. His power holds the front line, and doubts arise among foes watching the momentum shift. With a final surge, the team clears a path. Their formation holds tough, inching ever closer to freedom. Cheers begin to rise as the exit nears. Krim and her allies rush to the opening, sensing the end is in sight. Abruptly, one of the foes spots a lone figure beneath, puzzled. They query where he's been this whole time. The realization hits. He had gone down the back route, silently corralling scattered beasts into one dense team, cutting off their retreat. A startled ally acknowledges the unforeseen contribution. The scheme had worked, and the underestimated member proved his worth. With confidence rising, they predict the foe will walk right into the beast trap. Everything seems to be falling into sight. That faith is short-lived. A fresh wave of beasts approaches from the front, immense their expectations once further. Hinagiku swiftly grasps the scene. They're being flanked. A pincer maneuver threatens to close in from both sides. Krim steps forward with resolve, ready to lure foes with her taunt ability. She offers herself up to guard the team, believing she's the weakest. Frey lights up with sudden clarity, eventually presenting a scheme that might turn the tide. The team reacts with relief and disbelief. Krim praises him, as others joke about the fake glasses being truly useful. Meanwhile, foes watch from overhead. They ready to let the beasts do the work, aiming warily for when the team halts. As night falls, Frey rallies, the team with confidence. He starts explaining a fresh coordinated tactic under the moonlit sky. Smiling, Krim announces the operation will start with Freya. The team braces for a counterattack, this time on their terms. Frey assigns the bait role to Krim, departing her shocked. Regardless of doubts, she's expected to draw the beasts alone. Krim shifted forward, her feet kicking up dust as she readied herself for an actual tanking role in the team. Although nerves crept in, she pressed on with determination, trusting in her preparation. She recalled past failures, but now grasped the mechanics and team scheme further clearly. Regardless of outward confidence, panic flashed across her face. She forced a brave look, attempting to reassure the team that she could handle the menace bearing down on them. Signal was given, and the operation started. The team split into two groups, charging to their targets with precision. The rogues inquired which formation was a diversion, unsure if Krim's chaotic display was genuine or a masterful decoy tactic. A scattered formation of gamers spread across the field, each team unsure of the foe's coming move. From a higher vantage, commands were issued. The tactic was plain: eliminate the team that initially drew the beast's aggression. Magic flared as coordination started. A pack of beasts hurried from the front. The gamers steadied themselves, bracing for impact as distance rapidly sealed. Freya's squad shifted in parallel. Although their exact position was uncertain, close-by allies kept an eye on their sight, preparing to aid as required. Maintaining spacing was vital. One gamer adjusted her path, aware she couldn't remain too close to Frey or risk disrupting the formation's balance. As the foe forces rapidly neared, Krim positioned herself at a safe distance. She stayed alert, waiting for Frey's signal to act. Frey studied the battlefield, observing how the beasts would react. Her eyes centered, she ready to unleash a counter-move. Spotting the perfect instant, Frey lifted her hand with determination. The signal was given, prompting immediate action. Hurried forward, backed by Hinagiku, who guarded her flanks together. They shifted in sync to break through foe lines, activated her tank ability. Surging with power, she drew foe aggression to herself, establishing control over the battlefield. Krim's taunt claimed effect instantly, luring the focus of close-by beasts. A glowing barrier signaled their shifting focus as the trap unfolded. Frey and her allies spotted the sudden movement. Realizing Krim had drawn them all in, they readied to act on the diversion. From their vantage point, the others unleashed their assault. Oni hurried forward while one more gamer flanked from its rear, seizing the distraction window. Doubt lingered as their spellcaster owned the risk. Even so, the scheme pushed forward, driven by urgency rather than certainty. A mighty combo erupted. Wind magic and martial ability collided, striking the foe with force. The beasts faltered, puzzled by the retaliation. A sudden eruption split the ground beneath their feet. Rock and soil blasted upward as the terrain violently dropped. Caught in the shockwave, several fighters lost their footing. One girl screamed as the unstable surface granted way beneath her. Confusion spread as the ground fractured. The team, located too late that the bedrock weakened and brittle, had become a deadly trap. Rocks poured down in a chaotic landslide. Some gamers scrambled to safety as others disappeared beneath the debris. In the aftermath, survivors assessed the toll. Although many beasts were lost, uncertainty stayed about their team's condition in the rubble. Frey gazed on in disbelief. The opposing side had stooped to employing their own allies as bait, without hesitation or remorse. Confident in their assumptions, the foe figured Krim and her ally had been eliminated in the collapse. To their surprise, both girls reappeared unharmed. Krim grinned, having fled with the aid of Air Ride, a ability used at the final instant. Realization struck tough. The foe had underestimated them. What appeared like a fatal mistake had been a calculated escape scheme. Now aware of the tactic, the foe leader noted the maneuver's timing. Their retreat had been precisely at Air Ride's maximum range. Krim and her allies emerged from the dust cloud, landing safely. Their escape was swift like a theme park ride in motion. Laughter came coming as they regrouped. The others admired Frey's creative use of Air Ride, ability not usually meant for retreat. Capitalizing on the enormous dust cloud triggered by the landslide, the team employed it to cover their escape and confuse any pursuers. Scanned the distant movement, sensing risk. Her instinct screamed a warning as she activated her interface with urgency. Recognition dawned. A recognized presence triggered memories in rival whose dual instincts rivaled her own. Krim waited under the moonlight, eyes locked forward. A memory resurfaced. Her rival wasn't fresh. They had fought prior to.
Krim and her allies disappeared into the dense dust cloud, slipping out of sight as beasts and pursuers
lost track of their movement. Panic spread among the pursuers. Krim's descent triggered confusion, and some argued over splitting up or regrouping. Amid the uncertainty, a knight coolly viewed through enhanced vision. Regardless of the chaos, he could yet track Krim's position with precision. Krim waited yet, recalling her past encounters. The rival's style sensed recognized like a memory from one further game she once played. Facing a knight in red, Krim sensed a flicker of recognition. Although she couldn't recall the details, the presence sensed the same. The foe faltered, attempting to flee regardless of a severe injury. Krim advanced without hesitation, her presence closing the distance. Under the moonlight, Krim paused. She stated her intent to end the encounter swiftly, claiming no interest in cruelty, wounded and trembling. The rival threw away all pride and begged for mercy. The duel had clearly reached its conclusion. Krim listened, unimpressed. A gamer killer groveling for their life wasn't a common sight, and she located it oddly pathetic. Switching topics, Krim inquired the thief about stolen goods. Her smirk hinted she by then understood the reply prior to it was spoken. What started as nervous laughter swiftly shifted to genuine amusement. Krim and her rival shared a brief instant of levity regardless of the tension. Without warning, Krim lifted her blade once further. Her tone shifted, cold and crucial, as she stated her intention to finish the job, caught off guard. The wounded girl faltered. She scrambled for options, but could barely react in time to the sudden menace. A returning ally interrupted the scene. The injured girl attempted to negotiate, offering a share of stolen goods in a desperate attempt to sway favor. Krim's suspicions deepened. She inquired the thief's authority over her team's resources, watching her confidence falter under the weight of her own lie. She teased her wounded rival following exposing a lie, demanding to know why she wasn't provided everything. Her grin shifted sharper with each word. Frustration boiled over as the foe snapped, channeling her anger into a desperate strike. She released a dual art, further to buy time than to win. The technique wasn't meant to struck, it triggered a thick smoke screen, obscuring the zone and cutting off visibility. Seizing the instant, the girl came coming with a second assault. Blades of energy burst from the fog in a sudden barrage. Krim responded swiftly, blocking the assault and pressing forward. Her rival barely deflected in time, clearly overwhelmed, her blade cleaving down with force. The rival barely lifted her armament in time, eyes wide with panic. Retreat appeared within reach as the injured girl scrambled to an escape route, ignoring Krim's warnings. Faith flickered in her desperation. Out of nowhere, a recognized ally reappeared, charging into the fray. Krim's focus shifted, sensing a sudden change in momentum. The girl smirked triumphantly, thinking she had baited Krim into a fatal mistake. Her trap yet came too late. Chaos erupted as both attackers collided. Krim struck decisively, turning their 2-against-1 scheme into a brutal failure. Krim intercepted the foe's strike with a well-placed kick, halting his dual art prior to it could activate. His confidence crumbled instantly. Without hesitation, she came coming up with a crucial blow, knocking him back. Her taunt echoed timing mattered further than power. Although wounded, he wasn't finished. Krim's strike hadn't been far enough. He grabbed her arm in desperation, attempting to pull her down with him. Unfazed by the counter, Krim steadied herself. Her grip tightened as she pressed forward without hesitation. Something shifted, her eyes narrowed. Whatever was connecting them, data system. Link. Krim understood she had to cut it now. Just as Krim shifted to strike, a concealed party member displayed herself. Her blade by then plunged deep into the enemy's back. The surprise assault struck tough. Krim located the porker, had even shifted her own party into a menace. With a twisted grin, the woman reveled in the instant. The violence thrilled her, and she wore madness like a crown. But the tables shifted once further. Krim's ally stood, unleashing a vital blow. His blade pierced through prior to she could gloat further. A final burst of force tore through the foe. She dropped it final, her smirk fading as the screen stated her destruction. Krim unleashed herself backward, avoiding the complete brunt of the assault. Her pace shocked her foes, buying her vital distance. Although damaged, her HP clung just overhead 0. The missed shot spared her from total beat, and frustration rose on the foe's face. Awed but irritated, the rival acknowledged Krim's persistence. Her tone shifted from mockery to grim resolve. Confident in her advantage, she pointed out Krim's near-empty health. The duel in her eyes was by then won. Drawing her blade once further, she readied to end it. No tricks, no surprises, just raw finishing force. Krim leapt back, but the foe drew a pistol. With cold precision, she targeted, declaring one shot would end everything. Under the pale moonlight, the two rivals faced off on a barren battlefield. One gripped the advantage, gun lifted, taunting their foe who knelt wounded in the distance. Regardless of bloodied faces and worn expressions, neither side yielded. The vampire girl gazed back coldly, unshaken by the menace prior to her. The duel's escalation, one lunged forward, as the other pulled the trigger, only to hear an empty click. With a drop-short shot, the girl sealed the distance. Her cloak whipped through the air as she unleashed a direct assault. Dashing unpredictably, she evaded retaliation. Her blade surged forward as the foe located too late that she had slipped past their aim. Krim released an intense blow, her form swift and precise. The foe reeled, eyes wide in disbelief at her pace and timing. Desperation overtook her rival. They lifted their firearm, confident that one final shot would secure victory, regardless of Krim's agility. Yet once further, Krim defied expectations. Her evasive maneuvers mirrored techniques seen only in advanced VRMO combat, moving unpredictably across the battlefield. Memories stirred. The rival identified the exact movement style from a past siege event in a game named Realm Crisis, shocked by the similarity. In a distant past, a commanding figure had readied defenses with confidence. Now, facing Krim, that same experience provided no advantage. Within the fortress, soldiers guarded an enormous crystal as a confident pirate girl argued the minor menace level posed by their lower-ranked rivals. Abruptly, alarms echoed. The foe breached the main gate, drawing startled reactions from the once complacent defenders. Waves of intruders surged forward. Orders were issued swiftly as the captain assigned positions and readied to counter the advancing team. Amid the chaos, a lone knight hurried forward recklessly. His bold advance was seen as foolish by those defending the stronghold. Without hesitation, the captain fired a neat shot. She mocked the knight's predictability as the bullet tore to its mark. A bullet zipped past, yet the armored figure evaded cleanly. Spectators were shocked. Was he truly reacting mid-shot in a VR game? Onlookers from the battlefield identified the maneuver. Among them, a rival acknowledged the uncanny reflexes of the warrior they named the Headhunter. Rumors circled as some inquired his legitimacy. Yet veterans understood the truth. This was Krim, infamous for precision and evasion under fire. A tactician close by stated that hidden by provoking attacks, Krim could read intentions and respond prior to the bullet even fired. Through sniper scopes, it became plain. Predictable paths were simple targets Krim, yet never shifted the same way twice. The Headhunter dashed forward with keen, unpredictable steps. Observers spotted a pattern concealed within the chaos, subtle but deliberate. For a brief instant, Krim inserted a readable motion. It was a feint just enough to bait a trigger-happy foe into claiming the shot. Timing became his armament. Anticipating the exact instant a shot would fire, Krim stayed a step forward of his attackers. He studied micro-movements, twitches in fingers, shifts in aim, and slight eye focus to dodge bullets with near-inhuman reflexes. Without conventional controllers, VR systems translated actual hand motions, letting Krim use natural resistance and instinct to execute perfect evasion. Fingers tightened on triggers, the two marksmen aligned their shots. Each understood that success relied on deliberate and precise execution. Once a decision was created, hesitation became impossible. The act of firing could no longer be reversed, not even in VR. Even when the target vanished from view in an instant, the bullet would yet be released, guided by reflex further than figured. Krim sealed in, deflecting an incoming blade with a keen burst of force. Her movement cracked the rival's rhythm completely. As the fragments scattered, realization struck the foe. Memories came back. Recognition flickered in their eyes. Krim was someone from the past. Krim waited tall, her cloak fluttering in the wind, as an foe yelled her feared title, the headhunting Red Knight. She corrected them casually, insisting on the proper title, the Crimson Knight. Her look, yet, betrayed her attachment to the name. Her rival faltered, recognizing her identity. Thoughts spiraled if her actual gender or real realm identity got exposed. Trouble would follow. Rumors swirled among gamers. With crossplay being scarce in VR, suspicion and curiosity stirred, adding tension to Krim's by then complex scene. She grinned awkwardly, offering a compromise if her identity stayed hidden. She'd show mercy beneath the humor. Her request was sincere, yet gripping her armament, Krim stated she had no intention of letting her rival walk free. Her tone was final. The beat fighter attempted to pivot the conversation, nervously joking about their allies' power and the menace of being left at rear. They provided to aid, attempting to justify escape. But Krim stayed centered, unmoved by the flattery or concern. Standing under the moonlight, she corrected him. Krim wasn't just a carry, and her team wasn't frail. They were further than underestimated gamers. With a faint grin, she extended a suggestion. Perhaps they could spend just a bit further time together following all. Krim neared as her rival faltered, calling out for aid that never came. The distance between them sealed steadily. a dark shape crept across the ground. Prior to the downed fighter could react, the shadow beneath them twisted and locked them in sight. Unable to move, they located too late they'd been caught by a spell. Krim coolly proved its shadowbind, cast from her own silhouette. Abruptly, one further figure emerged beneath the moon. A hooded swordsman waited atop the cliff, watching with eerie silence. Krim's eyes narrowed. Tension stood. She demanded answers. Was this figure backup, or a fresh menace altogether? A fiery figure connected atop the cliff, its radiant wings casting keen shadows across the barren landscape beneath the glowing moon. Krim shifted back, unsettled by the surge of energy. She couldn't tell if the presence was spectral or one further mighty gamer entering the field. Recognition struck her as the figure neared. This was no common rival. Her eyes locked onto him, her look tensing. Famed across the servers as the strongest in the meta, the guild master of Nord Glacier had abruptly emerged prior to her. Sensing an opening, Krim plotted swiftly. If she could provoke a clash with the headhunter, victory was assured. Krim clenched her jaw, unwilling to admit it, but the headhunter's power was undeniable. Yet, her experience informed her something greater loomed. She recalled the clash vividly. The cloaked man's precision and force operated on a level the headhunter could never match. Resolved, she consented the cost. Even if death awaited her, she was resolved to drag her rival down with her. Turning to the cliff, Krim lifted her tone, provoking the figure overhead to descend and join the fray. Watching the man take flight, the enemy located too late. Krim wasn't alone, and reinforcements had by then reached. From overhead, the cloaked man descended with alarming pace. Krim braced herself, sword ready, heart pounding. His landing cracked the ground between them, sending a shockwave through the battlefield. Krim's eyes widened in disbelief at the sheer force. Chunks of earth granted way beneath the foe, catching her off guard as the terrain dropped into chaos. As dust cleared, Krim spotted a tunnel beneath. It wasn't just destruction, an underground path had been exposed. Puzzled, she inquired whether the impact was intentional. The man's weight alone had displayed an escape route beneath their feet. Krim assessed the crater beneath, her health nearly depleted. A direct confrontation now could end her instantly. She weighed her options, eyeing the lingering dust. If timed right, she might use the cloud as cover to slip within. A surge of urgency overtook her. There was no time to hesitate. The scene demanded pace over caution. Landing softly in the tunnel, she advanced as remaining alert. Traps or ambushes could lurk in the shadows. When a stranger addressed her, Krim stayed guarded. She didn't trust him, especially not as wounded and surrounded by uncertainty. Within the tunnel, laughter echoed as the cloaked man expressed relief, startled to have survived. Krim viewed cautiously from at rear. A minecart carrying their former foe sped off. Mocking parting remarks were thrown back at them, taunting Krim as the cart vanished into the dark. Turning to the cloaked figure, Krim demanded answers. Coolly, he displayed his name, Saul Leon, and his position as guildmaster of Nord Glacier. Recognition flashed in her eyes. That guild topped the rankings, famed for unmatched coordination and power. Saul stated his presence drawn by rumors of gamer killers. He hadn't expected to meet someone who truly caught his focus. Unleashed forward without hesitation, initiating a sudden deathmatch. Krim flinched, caught off guard by his pace and intent as he provided her a choice. Turning back with confidence, he awaited her decision, intrigued by her spirit. Krim and her team came back to the recognized shrine where she had once provided a prayer. One of the team members clarified their intent. This wasn't a random visit. They had come deliberately to obtain a shrine buff, a mighty effect that would aid them avoid beasts. Standing near the offering box, they discussed how such mechanics were often overlooked in games. The team joined in prayer, each member hoping for distinct outcomes. Some wished for safety, others for loot, one even for their foe's destruction. Elsewhere, one further team sealed in on the shrine. Annoyed and impatient, they demanded answers, believing their targets, Krim's team, were by then there. Prior to Krim's team could finish praying, foe voices echoed close by. The tension stood as they located pursuit was closing in fast. Within, they were met with an eerie atmosphere. Odd objects filled the room, and the air sensed heavy. Someone muttered that the site might actually be cursed. Whispers and confusion came coming. Krim's team debated whether they had activated a buff or a debuff. One located a peculiar item as others struggled to stay calm. Peering through the window, they attempted to confirm the menace. Each member anxiously awaited the reply. Beyond the trees, a team of 3 foe gamers neared, one leading a horde of beasts. With the door secured, Krim's team huddled at rear the wooden slats, hoping the foe would pass by. One attempted to stay optimistic as the others feared if hiding would work. Caution claimed hold as movement was heard close by. The team crouched minor, treating the scene like a stealth mission, attempting to stay completely calm. Meanwhile, the foe team reached at the shrine. Finding no trace of Krim's team, they assumed the team had by then fled further away. Suspicious, they redirected their search to a close-by shed, dismissing the shrine as empty. Peeking through gaps in the wood, they located nothing within. Attempts to open the door dropped short. It was locked from within. From beyond the shrine, the foe scouts proved nothing was visible. They selected to search around the back, unaware of the concealed figures just at rear the door. One of Krim's allies relaxed, believing the risk had passed, but doubt flickered in one further's eyes. Suspicion stood when a faint glow emerged near the doorframe. A closer inspection displayed something odd had been triggered. A masked foe studied the surface and proved it. Residual heat signatures indicated someone had touched the door recently. Krim's team had been located. Panic cracked out within. The team located their site had been exposed, employing infrared light, forcing them to retreat from the entrance. The foe displayed the truth. Their gnome ally possessed infrared vision, capable of noticing residual heat departed by anything touched. Tension escalated as the attackers pounded on the door. Confident in their advantage, they demanded the team surrender, mocking the shrine's flimsy protection. Within, panic spread. Krim's team feared the horde waiting beyond would storm in if the door granted way. They started to speculate about the room itself. Perhaps it was enveloped in a sacred element field, creating it stronger than it emerged. In this realm, shrines could possess elemental properties. Just like churches weaken demons, this one might repel evil or nullify attacks due to its elemental alignment. Krim's team weighed their chances. If the beasts cracked through, the shrine's sacred field might weaken them. Frustration boiled over. Krim and her ally released a barrage of insults, calling out the attackers' cowardice and reliance on mobs, daring them to face actual combat. Tension exploded as determination surged. One vowed to make the foe cry as the others demanded action, their nerves fraying. But something snapped. Hinagiku's sudden shift caught everyone off guard. Her calm demeanor vanished as she muttered dark thoughts, eyes empty. Years of suppression unraveled. Whispering to herself, Hinagiku recalled each instant she endured silently until now. One of Krim's allies recalled her childhood, where even in games, she was targeted with hate messages. Those moments departed a lasting impact. She recalled sitting alone, gripping her console tightly as reading cruel texts on the screen enough to make anyone quit. Hinagiku had probably sensed the same. Although she stayed calm, dread and pressure had worn her down slowly. If she disconnected now, she might never return. The emotional weight could be enough to drive her away for good. They resolved to guard her. Letting Hinagiku escape was the least they could do. She deserved a safer site to play. Hinagiku recalled a time when she had allies in one further game. They were driven away by older gamers who hunted them down, forcing them to quit. Her ally pondered on her own aggressive reaction, recalling her mother's advice, never hesitate against gamer killers. That advice echoed fiercely, show no mercy to PKS. The remarks shocked Hinagiku, their intensity lingering in her thoughts. Regardless of the risk, her resolve solidified. She had always gripped back, but far within, she desperately wished to duel back even if it cost her. Others viewed, shocked. The door trembled, but Hinagiku waited firm. Her dread had vanished, replaced by a keen, inherited fury. With faith fading, one teammate proposed employing the shrine's sacred power to wipe out the foes. One further corrected her, that's not how elemental fields function. The discussion shifted to abilities. If Hinagiku's sacred ability was active, could it aid? But confusion arose. Was she even a beastman? Everyone froze. The revelation connected. Hinagiku wasn't a beastman at all. Regardless of her appearance, beyond the foe gloated. The door had weakened, and their assault was moments from cracking through. With a thunderous crash, the shrine's entrance exploded. The foe burst in flames and debris scattering in all directions. The foe's axe cracked part of the door, but something hit back prior to they could react. Their guard dropped for an instant too long. Hinagiku burst through the remains, cloaked in energy, charging straight at them with deadly resolve, aiming to strike down all three intruders. Krim waited engulfed in ethereal flames, vowing to offer her foes' heads to the shrine. Her body burned with power as she readied for a brutal strike. Elsewhere, foe scouts spotted the odd flames and identified the rest of her team hadn't departed yet. The flames weren't visual effects. Krim was literally on fire. Her body endured recoil damage, but the burning state appeared to be granting her immense power. Puzzled, her foes debated whether Krim was bait or had simply hurried forward recklessly. Warnings were yelled, But miscommunication spread. Krim's intent stayed plain: destroy them all. A heated exchange erupted as confusion spread among the team. One member insisted something was visible, as others saw nothing. Abruptly, a cloaked figure emerged, commanding focus and elemental power. His tone cut through the chaos, demanding the shutdown of heat vision. One further ally shifted forward, revealing the truth. The foe had missed the concealed trap by focusing solely on thermal signatures, and oversight now costing them. An eruption came coming. The ambushed rival located too late that his own tactics had been shifted against him. Observing the chaos, Krim struggled to strategize. Pressure mounted, but she forced herself to stay grounded. Regardless of the earlier chaos, one foe refocused with determination, insisting Krim must be eliminated through coordinated, targeted strikes. His attempt ended abruptly. Krim unleashed a devastating blow, shattering his defenses and eliminating him with searing precision. The others reassessed swiftly. Believing she couldn't survive the beast aggression alone, they selected to let her exhaust herself under the swarm. Meanwhile, focus shifted to a new menace, an Oni warrior wielding a distinct armament. His sudden presence shifted priorities. Sensing an opening, the gamer killers started to retreat. Krim instantly granted chase, unwilling to let them escape unpunished. Krim waited prior to a horde, eyes locked on the tightly grouped beast closing in under moonlight. The battlefield had shifted in her favor. Allies swiftly cracked down the foe's scheme. The Oni had baited the killers. Hinagiku had drawn the mobs, and now they were controlling the chaos. Elsewhere, it became plain that Hinagiku belonged to a scarce beastman race, the silver fox with traits far beyond the norm. Her devastating azure flame ability once led to death upon activation, draining her HP entirely on initial use. Now, with it active once further, she endured continuous recoil damage, trading life for unmatched power. With sacred and flame elements now fused into her form, Hinagiku's strikes gained additional buffs, especially effective against demons. Surging with energy, she tore through the battlefield. Her aura blazed wildly, departing foes unable to mount a proper defense. Unleashing her finisher, she soared overhead the chaos and executed the divine inferno vortex slash, annihilating her foes in a sweeping blast. Victory came swiftly. The team celebrated as the final blow dropped. Eager to claim their spoils from the beat killers later, teammates pondered on Hinagiku's power. Her power came with risk. Few could survive wielding it without constant aid. The team wandered the calm terrain, calling out for Krim, convinced she'd be fine regardless of the separation. Search efforts displayed nothing. No sign of Krim, no trace of the gamer killers. Questions arose about where the tide of duel had taken them. Panic flickered. The possibility of Krim being kidnapped claimed hold, and expressions rose grim. Reality proved their fears. Krim, tied up and employed as a hostage, pleaded for release, her pride clearly crushed. Enraged, her allies located a tunnel beneath them. Their determination sharpened. Krim would be rescued without mercy for her captors. A huge chasm unsealed where the ground had once been stable. The team waited, puzzled. This hole hadn't been there prior to. Abruptly, Hinagiku's keen senses detected Krim's scent rising from within. Alarmed yet resolute, they readied to descend regardless of the unseen. Upon reaching the cavern beneath, they cried out for Krim. The silence and eerie setting unsettled them, but they pressed forward. Far cracks and slashes along the walls displayed intense combat. It was plain, an intense duel had erupted in the depths. Eventually, they spotted Krim's figure. The battlefield proposed a brutal clash, possibly with someone wielding immense force. Krim lay wounded, relieved her allies survived. Her calm look concealed beat a calm admission of her loss beneath ground. She waited beneath the hanging lanterns, her focus narrowed. The tension in the air sharpened as her fingers tightened around the hilt of her armament. The duel parameters were set. One strike would decide the outcome. Krim and her rival, Saul Leon, both had minimal HP. Their arms clashed violently, shockwaves bursting from the impact. Saul's power-centered swing came with immense weight, yet no gaps emerged in his technique. Saul advanced aggressively, unafraid of the duel stakes. His confident grin betrayed his mindset. Victory belonged to those willing to take risks. He unleashed an enormous spear assault, employing his range advantage. The sheer distance covered by the strike departed Krim cornered. Krim located the reason at rear her rival's flawless guard. The sheer force of his wide swing covered each gap, denying her any opening to strike back. She spotted how early he initiated his movements. Compared to her, his attacks were by then underway by the time she reacted. His tall frame and long armament allowed him to dominate the mid-range zone. Each swing, although slow, compensated with reach and immense presence. As his assault persisted, Krim was forced on the defensive. There was no pause, only pressure. The ground split under the force. His attacks combined weight and range, delivering unmatched destructive momentum. Krim was unleashed into the air, her body skimming rock with force. Saul had committed to the strike, but it departed him vulnerable mid-motion. Without hesitation, Krim dove in. Her blade collided with his defense, the impact creating a violent burst of energy across the battlefield. Startled by her resilience, Saul acknowledged her power. Krim had succeeded this without ability assists, pure instinct and precision carried her. She shifted her stance, drawing a second armament. Facing a dual-wielding rival, employing only one sword sensed wrong to her. To win, Krim understood she had to close the gap. She resolved to erase each advantage Saul gripped by claiming the duel up close and personal. Krim unleashed into a rapid sequence of close-range slashes. Her dual blades danced immense Saul Leon with pace from multiple angles. Closing the distance further, she challenged his mid-range focus. Her strikes targeted Tall, exploiting his limited vertical defense. A break emerged. Saul's armament struck the ground. Krim saw it instantly. Her instincts surged. This was the instant to finish it. As she hurried forward, her eyes locked on the weakened stance. The cracked minecart rails beneath them unsealed an opportunity. With one crucial blow, Krim cracked through his guard mid-air. The duel reached its turning point in a burst of destruction. Krim lay on the ground, bruised and breathless. Her HP was nearly gone. Saul neared slowly, his stance relaxed following the clash. He lifted a hand but withheld the final blow. Regardless of his win, he selected restraint. The duel was over. Krim acknowledged his decision. It had been a sudden death match, and he struck initial. She consented the outcome. They both owned gripping back. Neither had displayed their actual power nor used their best gear or trump cards. As she shifted to leave, Krim promised herself coming times she wouldn't lose. With the duel concluded, Krim vowed to become even stronger. Her eyes gripped firm resolve, challenging Saul to do the same prior to their coming meeting. As he disappeared into the cave's darkness, they both consented to clash once further next time at complete power. Under ideal conditions, Krim waited alone in the aftermath, declaring he should use everything he had when that instant reached. Elsewhere, Saul reunited with his guild. His rare beat startled his allies, but he consented it with a calm smile. Later, Krim shifted to her teammate, silently asking how their mission had gone. The coming phase was by then beginning. The team exchanged casual remarks following duel. Although there was little loot, the relief of surviving was enough. Tension eased as laughter came back. Abruptly, all eyes shifted to an odd presence. Krim froze. Sensing something unforeseen at rear her, she gazed down in disbelief. Realization dawning too late. Something had gone wrong beneath their notice.